Good afternoon. I will call the meeting of May 8th, 2025 of Santa Barbara Local Agency Formation Commission. Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Commissioner Aceves?
Here.
Commissioner Freeman?
Here.
Commissioner Geyer?
Here.
Commissioner Hartman?
Here.
Commissioner Kiriakou? Commissioner Lee? Commissioner Magana? Commissioner Mosby?
Present.
Commissioner Nelson?
Here.
Commissioner Patino?
Here.
Commissioner Stark?
Here.
Let the record reflect that Commissioners Kiriakou, Lee, and Magana are absent.
Thank you. At this time, please stand and join the commission in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The first item of business is the approval of the minutes of the April 3rd, 2025 regular meeting.
I'll move for approval.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Commissioner Freeman?
Here, aye.
Commissioner Geyer?
Aye.
Commissioner Hartman?
Aye.
Commissioner Mosby?
Aye.
Commissioner Nelson?
Here. Aye.
Commissioner Stark?
Aye.
Chair Patino?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Now is the time for members of the public to speak on items that are not on the agenda. And did we receive any requests to speak on item not on the agenda, Madam Clerk?
Chair Patino and members of the commission, we have no request to speak under general public comment.
Okay. So I know that you're not here, all of you aren't here to see the whole meeting, which is really exciting. So I'm going to move up for our next informational item, which is item number 3, and provide staff with the direction to either hold the study session or schedule this matter for a future meeting. So if I have any public comment on that.
Chair Patino, I'm just going to read the item into the record.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Information item number 3 is a study session regarding Richards Ranch reorganization to the city of Santa Maria. And I would just like to ask anyone who has turned in public comment slips, are these comments related to a continuance of this item?
Madam Chair.
Okay, yes. Okay. Okay.
Then Chair Patino and members of the commission, we have no request to speak on this item solely on whether or not it should be continued.
Okay, thank you. You had a couple of hands up in the audience.
Chair, just
Yeah,
before
excuse me. Yes.
I think a lot of the public doesn't understand that there's been a continuance asked for. So can maybe explain, maybe just have staff explain that to what the public would, some of us know as board members because we've been getting the emails. But I think a lot of people here in the public don't understand what's being asked right now. And they may actually want to speak on the continuance, but I don't think they actually know what's being asked for. So let's maybe clarify that as a starting
Would you like to
point.
clarify that, Mr. Prater?
As staff, we will clarify. So staff received a letter from the developers team requesting that the commission continue the study session and not hold the meeting. Because that came in post our publication of our agenda, we now have to pose that question before the commission, and you get to vote on whether or not you want to continue with the study session today or postpone that to a future meeting. And so we're going to take that question up first. We'll allow public to speak on that specific item as to whether they want you to hold the meeting or postpone the meeting, and then the commission will vote on that. If you vote to postpone the meeting, that'll allow the audience that was here to speak to know that they can go on about their day and they can go home, or they can stick around and still listen to the rest of our meeting. If we vote to hear the meeting, then they want to know they need to stick around. We'll take the item up in order of the agenda, which is the last item of the agenda today, under informational items. So that is the action that we're asking the commission to take. First, do we want to hold this meeting today or not?
Okay, and that is the question, do we want to hold this meeting today or not? Not whether or not you want to speak on the whole item, okay? So I have another hand in the back. Okay, so, Mr. Solty?
Is it on? Okay. Great. So my name is Michael Stolte. I am the managing member behind Richards Ranch. We are the entity that's requesting the annexation. Our attorneys requested the workshop be postponed. In our letter, there are some very serious allegations, which we take very seriously. This has been an extremely unusual last 4 years for us. I'm very deeply conflicted with this situation. On one hand, I think it's very important that this commission get to know this project and what we're requesting. And I think it's very important that the public has an opportunity to have a voice and to start to also understand why we're requesting this annexation. For those reasons, I really want to go forward today. I am not my attorney. Our attorneys, act independently on our behalf. But that's my stance, and I'm here prepared to speak today. With that said, I think our attorney's recommendation also is valid in the sense that what has taken place over the last 4 years is wrong. And I have concerns about the potential fair process because of that. But I'm more than happy to explain this project to everyone today, and I think that's very important. And so ultimately, we're happy to support whatever this commission wants to do. And I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. You may come forward.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name's Donna Pulling, and it's my understanding if we could get a legal opinion about whether this request to continue is in compliance with the open meeting law. It's my understanding there should have been a 72-hour notice that the meeting would have been postponed so that it would have avoided all of these people coming to this meeting that was properly noticed and scheduled for today. So given that, I would like to get a legal opinion about that open meeting law violation for not having a 72-hour notice. Whether or not the lawyers sent the email in a timely manner, it was not noticed to the public. So, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Poling. There's another hand. Oh, another hand? Yes.
Two others.
Okay.
Good afternoon. My name's Wendy Kaiser. I'm a resident of Orchid. And it's my understanding, and I appreciate the comments that have been made so far, it's my understanding no vote is going to be taken today. And the concerns were about a conflict of interest potentially, or some passionate advocacy on the part of citizens of Orchid that may or may not have happened. And so in my mind, I feel like today could go forward because this is an informational meeting without fear. Who knows what litigation could be brought up? That was mentioned in the letter. But I feel like this is an informational only type of situation. No votes will be taken today with all the folks here. I think it would make the most sense to go forward today. It was noticed properly to have the meeting today. I don't know about the other aspect of the legal opinion on the second notice of postponing it. So I would appreciate it if we could move forward today, put the information out there, and then if there are conflicts of interest, that can be dealt with later on, and that way we move forward, and the people that are the developers can have information put out there in a timely manner. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, or afternoon.
Cliff Solomon. I guess I would like things to go forward. I was prepared to speak this afternoon. Been thinking about this a lot. I have attended a lot of informational sessions that Mr. Stolte has had over 2.5 years. I've heard what he is planning. I do have some concerns, questions about what is happening. Certainly the annexation and the treatment of 135, there are some questions that I do have, but we have been at this for a long time. And again, I have attended a lot of the informational sessions that we've had in Orchid. So I really would prefer that we keep going with this, because I am prepared to speak. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Solomon. Did you wish to comment on the legality?
Madam Chair and Commissioners, with respect to the noticing of this item, the Richards Ranch item was noticed in accordance with the Brown Act's noticing requirements. A comment letter subsequently was received during the comment letter time period requesting the continuance that was posted and distributed, and it is proper for the commission to consider that comment letter and request.
Thank you. Yeah, okay, so we can hear from the commission. I'll start down here with Mr. Guyer.
Yeah, I have a question for staff. The annexation application, was it deemed complete? And if yes, when?
The application has still not been deemed complete. It's still pending a property tax exchange agreement.
Okay, good, thank you.
Commissioner Stark,
I defer Commissioner Hart.
Thank you.
Commissioner Hart.
Well, this is a very awkward and sensitive position I think we find ourselves in. There is an allegation that one of our commissioners can't be, has expressed bias and therefore can't be impartial, and that this somehow compromises fair process, due process. This isn't a quasi-judicial action. Get that out. It is legislative, and we are allowed to have opinions. So I guess I would like our attorney to explain the law and policy around this, and ultimately who decides about not the continuance, but about the issue of so-called bias, because I think that's kind of what we got to resolve. In other contexts, if someone has to recuse, then they have to recuse themselves from the whole thing, and being here can influence other commissioners unduly. So that's a threshold question, in my mind at least, before we could go forward.
Commissioner Hartman, through the chair. So the legal framework of this is that courts find processing of annexation petitions and determination of municipal boundaries by LAFCO is a legislative function. Review of a quasi-legislative action is usually limited to an examination of the proceedings to see whether it was arbitrary or entirely lacking in evidentiary support, or whether the agency violated procedure required by law. It is not subject to the same constitutional demands of due process as quasi-judicial or quasi-adjudicatory matters are, and because the actions are stemming solely from statute. And the Cortese-Knox-Hertzberg Act governing these proceedings, though, does require that commission members exercise their independent judgment on behalf of the public as a whole, and not solely the interests of the appointing authority. Further, LAFCO has policies in place in its commissioner handbook and on its website that put in place the requirement to have a fair process. As to this annexation application, I do not believe there's anything in the record that has indicated that the processing of the application has been anything but fair. It has followed the same process as other annexation applications to date.
I guess that's a that helps. I guess the question is, how would it, I mean, that we've received something that was really written in the context of another procedure, a quasi-judicial procedure where different standards would apply. And so I'm not quite sure what to make of that in light of LAFCO's policies, which deal not only with bias but perception of bias, and if a commissioner felt they were unable to be impartial, then they should consider voluntary recusal. I imagine voluntary recusal is the only way that could that a commissioner would remove him or herself.
Commissioner Hartman, through the chair, yes, I believe if someone felt that they could not meet the requirements of their own conflict of interest requirements, the ethical policies of the commission or the independent authority under the act, then yes, it would be voluntary recusal.
Okay, are you finished, Commissioner Hartman? Commissioner Stark?
Yeah, I do have a couple of comments. And I think I may be going in a different direction than everybody else. I'm support take this thing off calendar. There's a couple things that I think need to be settled. One of them is the thing that was attached to the council's letter, which is a lawsuit against the county, which is to determine the extent, if I understand rightly, and I didn't read this in huge detail, but I read it in enough detail to know that what they're challenging is the extent of the developer's rights and both substantively and procedurally with respect to their builder's remedy application in the unincorporated county, which is something which isn't really directly relevant to what we is, but it's certainly something that we would like to know. I don't know whether this thing can be resolved quickly or whether it would drag in the courts for a very long time, but it seems to me is a very serious and a very complicated question. I'm not faulting the developer from their position, nor am I faulting the county for their position. It seems like a good faith dispute over the extent of development rights. What I'd really like to see, unfortunately, it doesn't seem to be all that practical at this time. I'd like to see the parties get back to the development, to the negotiating table in some fashion and strive to reach some sort of accord. I'm not all that naive about, the possibility or the likelihood of that happen, but I think it really would be a benefit if at a minimum the parties could sit down and see if they can hammer something out. Meanwhile, if we don't have a completed application, and we really don't know what the alternative is, I'm not sure what the real efficacy is of having a whole parade of citizens up there saying whether they like or they don't like the project. We got, 130 some odd public comments, both for and against, stating different reasons. So we have a pretty good idea of the feeling that's out there. I just not real clear what the hurry is to get this resolved before we really know what the variables are.
Commissioner Freeman.
Yeah, so it's a very interesting point. So I kind of end up mentally separating out two very related questions, one of which is whether I feel that we need to continue based upon the argument that was provided in the documentation. There, I'm just no. I don't even understand what that would serve, because we'd end up just coming back to the same thing. Nelson would still be on our commission, and we would end up in the same question. So I'm not thinking that we need to continue. But now this interesting question is coming up about whether or not we should just continue it anyway. And it's an interesting point, because I feel like there was another one of these study sessions that we had a while ago, and I'm not sure if we end up with similar delays again occurring before another study session ends up occurring, more variables end up changing, everything keeps shifting, our memories get really foggy on everything, and I'm starting to actually now wonder whether or not, I mean, if the application's not completed, did I hear that correctly? Application's not completed. There's a lot of information that is missing, and I'm actually starting to think maybe it would make sense to continue it today, but not for the reasons stated by the people arguing for a continuation, but merely from the board's perspective. So I think this was the property that I'm not even sure if I'm remembering this correctly. I think this is the property where I had argued during the previous study session 2 years ago, yeah, let's hear about it. Why not hear about it? And an hour into the discussion, I apologized to the commission, saying that actually was a waste of all of our time, and we probably should not have gotten as many details as we had gotten at that time. And now 2 years later, I don't even remember if that was the discussion. So I'm starting to think maybe we should not do this, but yeah.
Commissioner Aceves, you had your hand raised? Oh, you didn't, okay. Commissioner Guyer, did you have a comment? Did you have a comment? Yeah, I did. Go ahead.
Well, that was the reason that I asked the question, if the application was deemed complete, because we could hold a study session for it, and then things could change in the process of completing the application. So I don't favor hearing a study session until the application is deemed complete.
Commissioner Nelson?
Yes, thank you, Chair Patino. Just a couple questions for staff, and then I actually have a prepared statement just because I'm the subject of some of the accusations. So I think it's best for me to be able to try to clear the air for the public. And some of my comments will be redundant to what you've already heard from either council or my colleagues. But my first question for staff is, so why is this on, and was this requested by the city? Was this requested by the applicant? Why are we doing a workshop right now? And what's the timing on that? Because I think I reached out about this as well earlier.
Yeah, so staff actually generated the need for this study session. So staff owns up to that in this process, even though the application was not deemed complete. And largely our rationale is there's a lot of truths, half-truths, misunderstandings, misinformation about what this project is or isn't. And so in order to, in some sense, clear the path for the commission to hold formal hearings, we wanted to get on the record, what is this project really about? What is it that you need to wrestle with when you start to balance all of the factors that you need to understand about whether to approve, deny, modify, condition this project? And rather than wait until it's 2/3 complete and ready to go, and all at once in one hearing try to compound the massive issues that are swirling around this project, we wanted to take this in a more bite-sized approach, slowly laying it out in front of the commission. This is what information is accurate. This is what this project is about. This is what it's not about. So when we get to a formal hearing, we can focus in on the real issues that are germane and the tough decision that you have to make. So that's why this is as a study session at this point in time.
Well, and the comment to that is, I know you're going to take the heat for this, Director Prater, but I think that is actually something worth thinking about. I don't think we should fault you for wanting to do that. I think that's something that's been plaguing this problem for quite some time. Is what are we really looking at here? So I'm not going to be one that's going to be upset with you. I do think as we determine what we want to do here today, there is a lot of people that did show up. I know we've got some county staff that flew back from DC to be here for this hearing. I canceled the trip myself from DC to make sure, because it was such a big deal. If it was just a regular business meeting, I probably wouldn't have come. I mean, this is the fullest that I've seen a LAFCO meeting in quite some time. I mean, this is so. I want to also not chill public comment and on it by telling people to show up and then go home, because that's what gets people not to come and participate in their government. They say it's already a set deal. It's really for those people that are up on high levels to figure out they're not going to really listen to us. So I just want to make sure as we make that decision, because I think there's good arguments I'm hearing on both sides here, but we think about that as well. But I'll go ahead and read my prepared comments. I'm going to address some of the accusations just because I think that's important as well to kind of clear the air on that and where I am on this proposal. So I apologize for the reading. It's usually not the way I like to do things, but I think I just want to make sure I get things out there for everybody. The accusations of impropriety are troubling. Feels like an act of desperation by the developer and their counsel, and I'm really sorry that's come to this. There's been a lot of noise in our community about this project, a lot of accusations thrown around about me, the developer, their investors, even the mayor. Even if their accounts of my conversations and actions were accurate, which I dispute both in terms of accuracy and context, it's clear to me that fundamentally they misunderstand the role of LAFCO and LAFCO commissioners. I understand why they might. Early on, I personally believed our role was similar to that what we do on our individual boards, where we sit in that quasi-judicial capacity, evaluating applications based on county, city, and district code. But that's not what we do up here at LAFCO. Our function is quasi-legislative. We've taken on a role that once was held by state legislature, delegated to local officials to make decisions based on a set of goals and criteria meant to prevent urban sprawl and promote orderly development. Ultimately, we're given broad discretion to approve annexations and shape policy, not in the interest of one jurisdiction over another, but the interest of the public as a whole. And policy is political. It involves a healthy discussion and advocacy and debate. It requires point and counterpoint. For the record, I've never said I blanketly am against annexation. What I do publicly discourage is piecemeal annexation. I've consistently encouraged the city and the county to work together. Expediency is not an excuse for bad planning. When this annexation came before us a couple of years ago, my question to the city was simple. What's your plan for Orchid? Is there a comprehensive vision for expanding your city limits into the community that's been in your sphere of influence since 1978? To this date, I haven't heard of one. The city is going through a general plan update process right now, and as far as I can tell, there's been no discussion or real effort to grow south into the unincorporated county lands. On the other hand, the county does have a plan for Orchid, the Orchid community. It's called the Orchid Community Plan, our first and only adopted growth plan. It balances residential development with commercial space and preserves open space. It came together after more than 100 public meetings. Is it perfect? No. Are there challenges with the environment and resources? Of course, but it's a plan. My goal hasn't been to blindly protect that plan, but to find a way for the city and the county to work together. Plans change, and I'm open to that. That's exactly why the city and county should be talking, sharing their visions for the future, and working through areas of conflict. Unfortunately, like the recent actions by the developer here at LAFCO, nearly every effort we've made in that direction has been thwarted. I'm fine holding this workshop as planned or delaying it if that's what's requested, but I have no intention of recusing myself or stepping back from the issue of annexation, whether in public or on this commission. I'm also willing to seek advice from the FPPC to determine if a conflict exists, but based on the information I received from our council, no conflict exists at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. I didn't realize until last night I'd been brought into this, but my only position on this whole thing is that an applicant comes to the city, and we deal with that as a council, and we vote on it as a council. The Planning Commission voted to proceed with the process. The City Council voted to proceed with the process, and it's here now in LAFCO. I think it's really important maybe to be able to sort out those things that are accurate, and I know that if people haven't been paying attention, we are talking about annexing east of the city of Santa Maria. We have not. Maybe, I can remember a few years ago, someone said they didn't want us to annex an area that was south of Santa Maria. We had never contemplated that. So it might be very interesting and good for everyone to hear exactly what the city of Santa Maria has in mind. So, Commissioner Mosby.
Yeah, I think it's important what staff recommendation was moving forward with due process and getting this out on the table and potentially answering a lot of the questions that the people out here have. And I believe continue this is just another delay. And enough of delaying. I think you should move forward with what staff recommendation is.
Okay, so do I have any other discussion, or do I have a motion to move forward or not to move forward?
I have one point, if I may.
Commissioner Hartman.
Chair. I'm just thinking, how might the issue of bias and due process play out? What are the consequences, in other words? And basically, at some future point, there could be a legal challenge, and if the plaintiffs prevail, then any decision would be probably upended. But we're not making a decision today. And then there might be some liability for the individual member. So I guess with that, it is a study session. I think it is. I have lots of questions. I never know when these continuances come up last minute. Do I pour my heart and read all this stuff and make my notes and be ready to go, or not? But I did in this case. So, and people are here. So I don't necessarily think for a project that is a big project, that is a project that has a lot of public interest, that we necessarily need to wait for a complete application. And I think that hearing some of the concerns might actually help shape the application. So, Commissioner Stark, what do you say to that?
Well, I have a furrowed brow, but that's okay. I have a question, actually, if I can make it through the chair to our council, and the question is...
Absolutely, Commissioner.
Let's assume that we go forward today and there's a presentation and there's public comment. Is that part of the official record for the case, or is there a new record that starts when we get to the actual hearing on the annexation itself, which my understanding is there has to be a hearing on that? I guess we could make this part of the record, but until we do, I would guess I'd ask our counsel whether this really is part of the record. I think it isn't, but...
Counsel?
Commissioner Stark, through the chair, my recommendation would be that if the commission wanted this to be part of the record at the actual hearing on the annex application, that you so make it part of the record. But I think until you do that, this would be the record of these proceedings, and the application hearing would be the record of that proceedings. But you could certainly make any information today part of that record.
And just so I understand, I think I do understand, we are not called upon, or for that matter, noticed to take a vote on this, on the merits of this project at all today. Is that correct?
Commissioner Stark, through the chair, yes, that is correct.
We're here to receive information from the staff and the parties and the public, and to ask whatever questions we want to ask for future reference. Is that fine? Fine.
Commissioner Stark, that is correct.
I'm happy with going ahead in that
Okay.
under that circumstance.
Commissioner Aceves.
Thank you. Just briefly, I spent a lot of time preparing for this meeting because I wasn't here the last time. And so I did have a lot of questions that I wanted to ask, but I understood that we weren't here to vote. And that's a big difference. Mm-hmm. We're here to take the input from the community, take the input from staff on questions that they've developed and the document prepared by our staff, and I think that's what we should be doing. I really appreciate our staff's bring this forward, because we should never, ever want to be in a position of not taking comments from the public. And so any opportunity we have to get it on whatever it is. Now, annexation is going to be another issue. I mean, remember, I was involved with the city of Goleta. We had to deal with the annexation issues. And so, that's a different issue down the road. But the bottom line is this: whatever we receive today or tomorrow or the next day is going to help the decision makers on the county level and the city of Santa Maria level in making their decision. They may help you make the decision if you hear from them, instead of just not, Anyway, I would hope that we would move forward, so at least I can get some questions answered.
Thank you. Okay. Do I have a motion here? Okay. Commissioner Hartman?
I move that we not continue, that we move forward today with the workshop.
I'll second that.
Okay, it's been moved and second. Any further discussion?
Do we need a motion if that's the case?
Yeah, yes, I think because there was a request to continue, we ought to act on it.
Okay, Madam Clerk, you want to call the roll?
Commissioner Freeman,
No.
Commissioner Guyer,
No.
Commissioner Hartman,
Aye.
Commissioner Mosby,
What are we asking to do exactly?
Can you restate the, restate the motion? I think somebody.
couldn't quite hear.
Yeah.
Commissioner Mosby, I believe our motion is to proceed with the study session for today.
Then I'm an aye.
Commissioner Nelson,
Aye.
Commissioner Stark,
Aye.
Chair Patino.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-2.
Thank you. Okay, now we'll go back to our agenda. And the next item is the approval of the consent calendar. Does any commissioner member want to pull any of these items? Is there any public comment?
Chair Patino and members of the commission, we have no request to speak on this item.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion to receive and file the consent calendar item 1.
Second?
And motion is made and second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Commissioner Freeman,
By the way, do we need to do roll call votes? Because we're all.
Do we need?
Okay.
Okay. I didn't know if we had anyone outliers anyplace. Okay. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Okay, the next item. So, Madam Clerk, would you please read the item into the record?
Chair Patino and members of the commission, business item number 1 is to consider recommendations regarding the final budget for fiscal year 2025-2026.
Okay, Mr. Prater?
Madam Chair and Commission, this is our final hearing to go over our final recommended budget for 25-26. As we indicated in the draft proposal, LAFCOs are independent. They get to establish and carry out their specific duties under the objectives of the Corti-Knox-Hertzberg Act and Government Code 56381 requires that after we conduct public hearings, both one, a proposed budget by at least May and a final budget by June, in between circulating it to our member agencies so that they can provide comment. We've achieved both of those, and the final budget that's being recommended does not change from the proposed budget, which is a final budget of $635,804, which is a slight increase above our current fiscal year budget. That ultimately represents about a 7.4% increase. And the reasons that were outlined previously are the same reasons. We included a CPI adjustment for staff. The SBCER's pension rate was increased. And then we increased our professional and service special services line item to cover extra help person in the new fiscal year. On that note, the plan that we had in place, which was to hire a former SBCER's employee on a temporary basis, has changed. That individual has changed their position on whether to become an extra help employee. So staff will be pivoting our direction on trying to find somebody new. And largely that will probably be putting a job flyer out and seeking a part-time help that still aligns with the budget that we're recommending. So we are asking that you maintain our professional services, special services line item at the recommended rate so that we can ultimately fund this position. It's likely that the start date of that position will be pushed and postponed. And so there'll be some initial savings in the budget, but ultimately we hope to acquire a qualified candidate to fulfill that role. Again, also what's changed in the final exhibit attached as B, after looking at our total revenues and expenditures, it looks like we will have more revenues than we will expend by the year fiscal end. And so those will help offset our contingency. Initially, our budget for 24-25 included $20,000 use of our contingency reserve to help offset our budget. We now will be able to retain that as part of our budget. So that'll go back into our kitty for our contingency reserve, but we're still recommending we use $10,000 to help offset this budget. At the end of the day, what that looks like is our contingency reserve will be healthier than expected at the proposed level. So what you'll see is the adjusted numbers of what our budget looked like for 23, or actually 24-25, and now 25-26, a slight increase. The attachment is the line item by line item account, and so if there's any particular questions about any one of those line items, we'll be happy to answer any of those. But it's recommended that you take any public comment and then direct staff to distribute our budget to the county auditor's office for distribution to our membership. With that, I'll answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions from the commissioners?
I have
Commissioner Stark?
a hyper-technical question. Am I to understand that there are two separate items of cost increase under what you listed under number 2? One is an increase in the pension rate, and the second is the need to augment our staff to an extent by hiring some form of extra help employees. And to deal with that, you're taking another $10,000 out of contingency. Is that right? Or did I miss something?
Yeah, that's not correct. So what we are doing is we are increasing our line item for professional services, which is a supply and service category. That is to help offset an hourly rate contract person, independent contractor, to perform primarily clerk services. So we've increased that line item. Overall, our budget has increased as a number of 3 factors: increase to staff salaries, increase to pension, and increase to this line item for professional services.
Got it. Thank you.
Commissioner Guyer?
Did all participants pay their 24-25 allocation?
Again, one of the members did not, and that continues to be the Cuyama Valley Recreation and Parks District. And their allocation is something like $79 that hasn't been paid. Largely, nobody has been able to get a hold of anybody at the district to get that paid. So that's gonna be a carryover cost on this line item budget. When their new allocation is disseminated to them, they will also be asked to pay last year's.
Thank you.
Any other questions at all? Do we have any public comment?
Chair Patino and members of the commission, we have no request to speak on this item.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to say this is our second bite at this budget, at least. So for people who are watching and thinking we're letting this slide by rather easily, we have debated this and discussed it in great detail previous meeting.
Okay, do I have a motion? Oh, Commissioner Aceves.
I should piggyback on Commissioner Guyer's question. And it's just a matter of process. I mean, what if another agency didn't pay the fees? What is our process in making sure that they are paid? If they're not, do they get, I don't know, kicked out?
No. So for Commissioner Aceves, through the chair, in order to deal with that, we actually took a policy forward to the commission about adopting our net balance and how we proceed. And the way the process works is after the county auditor's office disseminates the appropriate bill to be paid by our member agencies, which is due upon 60-day receipt of that notice. Sometime in November, I follow up with each agency that has not paid, that are past that due date, remind them of their obligation to pay. And if they still have not paid into December, then we can directly ask the auditor's office to withhold any property taxes that pays the offset of their owed balance. The agreement when we adopted that policy was to take a soft approach from staff's point of view about instituting that within the first couple of years to allow all of the member agencies to understand how that rule will be played out, and to do more on our front end of trying to encourage them to pay that bill. And so that's what we've done, and we have not pursued direct payment by the auditor's office. And to be quite frank, that's because it includes a whole other process. It involves county auditor, a whole lot of legwork. And so if we can avoid that process, it's better for all that's part of this. And so we've taken that soft approach, but we do have a policy in place to implement that. If they do not pay, we can directly go into monies that are owed to them through property tax and have that transferred over to our account.
Okay, thank you.
Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Guyer.
If it's just Coyama, what's the status then of Santa Rita Hills? They're still a district and a participant.
Santa Rita Hills, as part of the distribution list that the county put in because they had no revenues, had $0 that they had to pay. And or, here's the irony of this, of how this bill comes out for special districts. The special districts generate revenue. That revenue is transmitted to the state controller's office. When we adopt our budget is divided into a third, a third, a third. 1/3 the county pays, 1/3 the 8 cities pay, and 1/3 the special districts pay. The county auditor's team then looks at a report for LAFCO fee calculation generated by the state controller's office on what are the revenues from each of those special districts, what are those totals, what are the percentage of the total of all of those districts. That percentage is then calculated by their 1/3 of what they owe us as part of their LAFCO payment. Oftentimes, revenue is not either recorded properly through the state controller's office, and they will inevitably become no revenue for them for that year, and they might have a line item that says their amount owed to LAFCO is 0 because they reported no revenue. Or the district is inactive and not an active district, and they may be zeroed out for that purpose. And so it's all predicated on what is the report coming out of the state controller's office that generates the actual payment that the auditor's offices use. And so the short answer is I believe Santa Rita Hills was probably deemed inactive and didn't have a portion of
Okay,
that.
so yeah, because special districts are paid pro rata off of their budget. So if their budget's 0,
Yep.
their dues is 0.
Yep.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none, can I get a motion?
I'll move for approval.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Madam Clerk, do you need to take the roll on this? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. Okay, I'm going to take the prerogative of the chair and move over to item number 3. That's why everyone is here. So will the clerk please read that item into the record?
Chair Patino and members of the commission, Information item number 3 is to receive and file a report for a study session regarding proposed reorganization to the city of Santa Maria of 58.35 acres located adjacent to the southeastern Santa Maria city limits known as Richards Ranch.
And the executive officer will give the presentation. Mr. Prater.
Thank you. We do have a brief PowerPoint and a fair amount of discussion that kind of sets, hopefully, the tone for the commission. As you hear this information, keep in mind we are here to gather facts and so that you can get a clear picture of what you need to balance in your decision-making process. There'll be conversations about whether somebody's for or against or reasons. You can take that in as information, but we are predominantly here to solicit questions. And I've modified slightly from the PowerPoint presentation that I delivered and posted on the website, our overall order of business, if you will. So I will give an overview of the project itself. We'll talk about reorganization, what that means, annexation, what's being annexed, what's being detached as part of the proposal, and the nuances of what that all means and how that may differ at the end of the day when we take formal hearings. And then we're going to talk about what truly is today's purpose, which is an informational item. We're not making decisions. We're not contemplating what conditions might look like or anything of that nature. And then we're going to try and disseminate what is your role. What does that look like as a quasi-legislative body? Then we'll pass it over to the presenters of the city and the developer team, estimated somewhere around 20 minutes for them. They'll stick around for any questions that you may have. I do ask that if you have a burning question that's germane to what's being spoken to after each presenter, it's fair game to probably ask it to get it over with. But the preference is that you probably take notes, write your questions down. At the end of all of the presentations, we begin to ask those questions because likely one of these presenters might answer that question for you. After the city and developer goes, we'll have the county staff present, and then we'll open it up for public comment, and then we'll retain any rebuttals from the city and developer to help clarify or clean up any of the comments that may have caused some confusion for the commission as you've heard those presentations. And then we'll ask questions and answers of everybody, and all presenters will remain available to help answer those questions. So with that, Richards Ranch has been filed. It does consist of roughly 58 acres at the northeast and southeast corner. And you'll note that there's been a lot of comment about Highway 135. Let me get my pointer here, right? And why does that include Highway 135 versus the net parcel acreage? And the reason for that largely is because it's a standard that has to be met through our map and legal requirements of annexation. It also has to follow our policies to allow for contiguous property to be annexed into the city. So although the applicant may have initially proposed just their standalone parcel, by virtue of going through the process, we're exercising the commission's authority to modify the boundary. We're modifying that boundary to include the right-of-way so that they can meet those standards and meet the standards of map and legal requirements. Without that, we would not be able to even hear the matter. It would just be not an application that couldn't come forward. And so through your modification standards, you can take in one extra parcel towards the south if you wanted to clean up that little area and say it should be a complete square. You can take in another 100 acres, right? So you have the authority to modify the boundary as you see fit based on the evidence that's being presented to you. Keep in mind, The proposal is for a conceptual plan. The specifics of that plan will come back directly, if approved as an annexation, directly through the city through plan development proceedings and tentative map proceedings. And that would stay with the city. Once annexed, it will now be the city's territory. They will take over all future application proceedings. The sphere of influence was last amended in 2016, which still included the bulk of the Orcutt community. And so that's what exists today. The city also adopted environmental impact report. They certified that in December of 2024. That is the CEQA document that's being used for your additional review and information and determinations as you move forward in these regular proceedings. And ultimately, the application is from the city by initiation of a resolution of application. And so technically, the city is the applicant. So this is a map exhibit of that boundary showing it being contiguous to the city. On the ledger are all the detachments. So traditionally, what comes forward when a city annexes property are a number of detachments from other special districts. This includes the Mosquito and Vector Control District, County Fire, County Service Area 32, County Service Area 5, and North County Lighting District. Now, the question that will ultimately be proposed to you and has come up in comments is some agencies may not want to be detached. That is a sole discretion of the commission to either detach or not when you get through these proceedings. And there's reasons for that. And sometimes that decision can be assisted through the property tax exchange agreement process. If and when that comes to settle, they may decide not to exchange certain tax revenues from one of these districts. And they may agree upon that, which would set the tone as to whether or not the district should be detached or not. So that information is sort of put a pin in it. Let's watch what happens down the road. But as the application comes in, these are the expected detachments from these special districts as the property is annexed into the city. The city's current activities, as I said, it was a resolution of application that they adopted in November. They went through a pre-zone phase, and they prepared a plan for services. That plan for services is part of their application packet, which has been attached. It denotes who's going to provide police, water, fire, sewer, right? Not all services are proposed to be provided by the city itself. Sanitation is proposed to be by Laguna Sanitation. Water is proposed to be by Golden State Water through a supplemental agreement. And so these particular facts will come out as we discuss this. But keep in mind that plan for service is what's guiding how services will be performed. One of the balancing decisions you have to make is the plan for service adequate? Are the service model the appropriate model? Those are decisions that you have to make at a later date. We want to make clear you understand what those service obligations will be. The application has been referred to the different agencies. Those comments have been provided. They've been attached to this packet as well. And many of those will come up today in conversation. Ultimately, the city filed their application with LAFCO in February of 2025. Filing of that application started the process. It started the referral process. It started ultimately the start of the property tax negotiation process. That started on March 28th as a result of that filing. In this particular case, there was an immediate request by the county to extend that period for negotiation. Typically, it's a 60-day period with an opportunity to extend 30 days for a total of 90 days. In this case, immediately the county expected that they needed 90 days. They filed for that 90 days. So that's a fair process. It's just a matter of filing it with the city and filing it with the executive officer. That's been done. policies and factors. Here's the nitty-gritty of what this commission is being asked to do. You have to follow all of those factors in Cortina-Hertzberg Act. You have to follow your own policies. A lot of them are laid out here. They're laid out in the staff report as key issues that you need to contemplate. We've highlighted a handful of them here where we've already recognized there's some differences and some complexities that you have to feather through. The key as when acting as a quasi-legislative body is your role is to balance all of these factors. Not one project will meet everything completely wholly one way or the other. Though your balancing scales will be tipped both back and forth. One issue may cause some concern, another issue may be a favor of that. The weighting of these issues is at the discretion of each of you commissioners individually. Nothing is guided that commission policy or water supply is heavier weighted in a commissioner's mind. You each individually get to weigh out each of these factors on your own merits, your own understandings of what's more important to you. At the end of the day, the scale of balance will teeter one way or the other when we get into formal hearings, and ultimately that will be your decision.
Clarification question.
Okay, excuse me.
Yes.
Commissioner Hartman has a clarification.
Sorry, the blue and the gray, the blue, I think Commissioner Stark is also expressing perhaps his confusion about that, and mine.
Okay, all of these factors are required of you to balance.
Yeah, got that.
The blue are just part of that group. The gray are ones that have already been raised as being complex. So there's even more work that will have to be done in those areas.
Okay.
As far as your understanding of where do you rest at the end of the day with balancing those. And so that is to say also, as you're balancing this, ultimately when you get down to formal hearings, your decision process is yours alone. There's often no definitions that will help you, as we've learned. There's no definitions for urban sprawl. That's an eye of the beholder. There's no real clear definition for peninsula or island. Those are individual decisions that you have to weigh about whether you think they meet that or not. Staff, other members will be here to help guide some of that conversation. And then you'll decide, yeah, that makes sense to me. At the end of the day, one of those factors, let's say community sentiment, may be the heaviest factor, weighted factor for you individually. That, above all else, gives you a sense of where you want to reside on your vote, and that can override all the other factors that you have to weigh. And at the end of the day, it's your decision alone. You have broad discretion, and the courts have supported LAFCOs in making those decisions, right? So you have to decide what's the give us the heaviest weight on this. Does one outweigh the other? Does one singly outweigh everything else? And what we know is that this is a complex project. It has a lot of factors going on, and you have to weigh these things out. And keep in mind, we haven't even gone through hearings. This is an informational session. When we get to formal hearings, you're going to start to hear your fellow commissioners and their sentiments and their drive of what's driving them in making their decisions. And that may sway you even further. So your balancing scale, you may think at the end of the day, you know what it is, and somebody will give you some new information and it may tip the other way. All within your discretion to do. Again, outlined in this is some questions that we've asked all of the participants to kind of share with you because we knew they were going to be troubling questions. But ultimately, the properties are within the sphere of influence. That sphere of influence, as I said, was adopted in 2016. We are currently under review of updating the City of Santa Maria sphere of influence. We anticipate that happening in 2026. Some of the questions were raised about the city and county discussions. We know they've been having meetings, holding discussions, both before the annexation became an application to us about this process, and even now post, now that they're in negotiations for property tax exchange. So there's a number of conversations that are going on. Without revealing too much detail, we would ask to know, how are those going? What does that look like? Because that may help us understand where we might go. We've also asked clarification on the supplemental water agreement and the city's policies about water and whether or not they would allocate water outside of their city limits and for what purpose.
Excuse me, Mr. Prater. Commissioner Hartman has a question.
So today, are you asking us to add to this list of questions, or will you be answering these questions?
These are the list of questions that I've asked our presenters to be prepared for, because I knew they were probably going to come up. But I want you to add, as we go through this study session, as I speak, as each of the presenters speak, continue to write your questions. Because at the end of the day, the purpose of this meeting is to make sure each of you individually have whatever questions that are on your mind somewhat resolved, right? You at least have like, okay, I understand. Some of these are pretty straightforward, and the ones that I'll pick on are some of the letters from the county. Obviously, CSA 5 desires to remain attached, and that property tax go to them. Same with County Fire. That's outlined pretty clearly in their letter. I don't think we need clarification on that. What we need is clarification on the other items that might be causing some confusion or something that you may want to be pondering and weighing as you move through this process. Same with the builder's remedy proposal. So at the time we prepared this, we weren't quite clear about what that builder's remedy proposal was. Is it active? Is it not active? I think now that we've been given that supplemental letter, I think we now, it's much clearer that it is an active project within the county. So I think we've answered one of these questions already. And finally, it's the LAFCO policy consistency determination. And so we've attached as part of your attachment B, all of those LAFCO policies that you need to contemplate in addition to all of those factors that are being weighed. Does the application have to be consistent with everything start to finish? At the end of the day, the commission is going to make a decision. It's not about the preponderance of evidence that leans you in one way or the other, like you would for a land use application. This is, you've heard everything, you've balanced your scale, it leaned one way for one reason or another, and a reasonable person can conclude that same thought. That is the task and role of this commission. So in summary, we are going to continue to analyze this proposal. Yes, it hasn't been deemed complete. The only really outstanding item that we need to have is the property tax exchange agreement. And that has to run through that 90-day process. It's expected to 90 days in June 26th. Barring any new information that the commission may have at this study session, we'll want to get clear information for you so that when we do hold formal hearings, that feedback can be generated by the proposals of this application, and that you will be able to have clear understanding when we start those hearings.
Good. Chair Patino?
Mr. Prater, Commissioner Nelson has a question.
Yeah, thank you. Just for clarification, I think the property tax exchange is a question that everybody's been asking me is, there's a 90-day process. What happens when you get to the end if the two parties haven't come to an agreement? What happens next?
if you would allow me, let me finish this and I'll get into that, because that's a whole set that will probably lead to more questions.
Then I'll withdraw the question.
No, don't withdraw the question. I'll get to it. I just want to bear with me to end 3 more bullets. Okay, so as we indicated, the city has adopted environmental impact report. In that, they identified a class 1 impact, unavoidable to butterfly habitat. It is the requirement of this commission to use that document and to adopt your own overriding consideration for that same class 1 impact. Do the benefits that you see of the project outweigh that impact? And you'll be asked to do that. Again, key issues have been outlined in the staff report. All of the factors, all of the policies, all of that will be fully addressed before we, as a LAFCO body, consider this as a formal hearing. And then, essentially, we're waiting on that property tax agreement as to whether it can become an agreement or not. Sounds like there might be another question if we want to hear.
I have a question. I think it's finite. It might even have an answer. So I'm led to believe that the City of Santa Maria is the lead agency for this project. They have a certified EIR that includes the identification of an impact to butterfly habitat and a statement of overriding considerations that was adopted by the City Council. So far, am I correct?
Correct.
We're required to use their EIR. Is that not correct?
Correct.
And it's got to, we're the responsible agency, so it has to be adequate for our purposes to consider that. So
Correct.
My question is, what if we think, oh man, they should have saved that butterfly habitat? Are we free to say, hey, you should have saved that butterfly habitat, or are we required to accept the city's statement of overriding considerations?
You are not required to accept that statement of overriding considerations.
Do we have to write our own?
You have to write your own.
Oh, okay.
And staff will be here to help you, guide you through that. And if at the end of the day, you don't like what I wrote, and you say, we need to save that habitat.
Well, that's not going to happen.
You can't make that finding.
We're going to love what you wrote.
Yeah, well, you never know. Then you cannot adopt that CEQA document, right? Because you cannot make that finding. Ultimately, what happens to that is then that we have to assume lead agency role, because what the city prepared is not adequate for our use, and we will have to assume lead agency role. Does that make it clear?
With one exception. What if we decide that we don't want to approve the annexation, and then there's no project as far as we're concerned?
There's no project.
We still have to make some kind of CEQA finding.
Yeah. A denial of an application is an adequate CEQA determination. Similar to what we did for Bailey Avenue.
Fair enough.
Okay. On to, I belated that. Okay. So next steps. The city and developer, they're going to address all of this feedback, hopefully, by the time we get back to formal hearings for this. Property tax exchange, due June 26th. At the end, that's your 90 days are up. What happens at the end of that 90 days, either side can either ask for mediation. If you agree to a mediation process, a mediator will get involved. Both parties will put good faith, their one and only offer of tax exchange forward. That mediator will evaluate those two proposals and will select one. If the proposal is selected and a party disagrees, particularly the county disagrees with that, they can go back to their board and adopt specific findings that it would be detrimental to the county, and that would nullify the agreement. If at the end of 90 days, neither side asks for mediation, they inform your executive officer that talks have been positively progressing and that you need more time, we can restart the process. We'll re-up for another 60-day period with another 30-day extension. If along that process it appears agreement isn't going to be reached, after a couple of rounds, mediation is not desired, the application is terminated. And
Mr. Prater, Commissioner Hartman has a question.
Thank you. You said that two proposals are on the table and either one or the other. Can the mediator suggest a compromise and it's something in the middle?
through the process, they cannot. They have to select one or the other.
Commissioner Freeman.
Who defined that mediation process where it selects one or the other and there's no actual, what I would have considered mediation going on?
The Tax and Revenue Code
Fascinating. Okay, thank you.
describes that process. So that concludes my portion of the presentation. Obviously, I'm here to answer any questions. We'll move on in our order to the city.
Commissioner Nelson has a question.
I've got a couple of questions. I wanted to clarify on that tax change process. So after that 90 days, do they both need to agree to have a mediator, or only one side can ask, but does it take agreement on both sides?
No, only one side needs to ask.
Okay, and then you can go right to that process.
That process then will be initiated. A mediator will have to be selected, and there's a process to that.
Okay, and then you go from there. All right. Then getting back to the CEQA question, you've talked about the one element that was their statement of overriding consideration, but what if the board finds that there's other elements in there that the mitigations don't satisfy the impacts? Yeah,
so under your authority, you can add new terms and conditions that addresses additional mitigation that's necessary.
So we could actually look at we could determine the adequacy of some of the studies or some of the other findings that are in that CEQA document?
You can.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from Mr. Prater at this time before we go on to the next? The question I have, Mr. Prater, why 90 days? It seems to me it's pretty simple. You've got a template, and we've been through this before in Santa Maria, not too many, like maybe 20 years ago, I guess.
Well, 90 days is by statute within the Revenue Taxation Code.
Okay.
So it's 60 days with the 30
60 days is the usual, okay.
And the reason to go to 90 days is at the discretion of both parties. And in this case, they've requested it to be 90 days.
Okay, thank you. This is Dana Eady from the City of Santa Maria.
Yes, good afternoon. You all hear me okay? Sounds like it. All right. Good afternoon. My name is Dana Eady. I'm the Planning Division Manager at the City of Santa Maria, and I'm here to just give you an overview of the application. Some of the slides I have are a bit duplicative, so I'll go through those sort of quickly. And then I also wanted to mention I do have a number of city staff with me who are from Utilities and Public Works and Fire Department to assist in answering those related questions, should you have them. So again, this is the project site location. It is within, as Mr. Prater said, the City of Santa Maria sphere of influence. It is 4 parcels that are currently zoned retail commercial in the county and adjacent to the southern limits of the City of Santa Maria. You've already seen this slide, and Mr. Prater went over it. Essentially, it does abut the southeast city limits for Santa Maria, and then he's already gone over the different requests regarding the detachments, so I won't go into that again. This is the project site for future development. It is approximately 44 acres, and that's the area that would be developed in the future. It is currently vacant, although it did in the past have a single-family dwelling on the property and some accessory structures, and those were demolished, I think, in around 2010. The adjacent uses to the site are primarily residential, so single-family residential to the north and to the south, and to the southeast are some apartments. And then there's a church directly to the south west of the property. So just an overview of the application. In 2021, the property owner did file an application with the City of Santa Maria for annexation. It also included an application for a general plan amendment and pre-zoning of the property. Currently, the property is within the County of Santa Barbara, and it is zoned for retail commercial uses. And so the city's pre-zoning includes retaining a retail commercial zoning on those parcels that are shown in red in this slide. So to the north of Union Valley Parkway, and then to the southwest, there's one kind of triangular shaped lot there that would also stay zoned C2. The remaining areas of the site to the south would be zoned R3, which in the city is a higher density residential. It allows for 22 dwelling units per acre. Under our updated general plan, it could go up to 30 per acre. The current proposal is for around 400 apartments and 95 townhomes in that area. And that area to the south is the area that is directly adjacent to other residential uses. The project was reviewed by the Santa Maria City Council on 2 occasions. In November of 2024, that was when the resolution of application to LAFCO was adopted, the EIR was certified, and then in December, it was adoption of the ordinance to pre-zone the property. And then the LAFCO application was filed February 6th of this year. So this is the conceptual plan for future development of the property that was analyzed in the environmental impact report. It includes a mixture, again, of retail, commercial, mini storage, apartments, and townhomes. And so the retail, commercial, and the townhome and the mini storage would be to the north of Union Valley Parkway, with some retail, commercial to the south. And then the remaining areas I mentioned before would be for residential development. It includes 106,800 square feet of retail commercial and 39,500 square feet of mini storage use, and then around 495 residential units. And as Mr. Prater mentioned, if the site is to be annexed, then the next step would be for the property owner to apply for permits with the city to develop the site, and that would include plan development permits and subdivision entitlements, and those would go through the city's review process into the city's planning commission.
Ms. Edie, Commissioner Stark has a question.
Question related to the layout of the land. Where is this in relation to the Santa Maria Airport, and particularly with respect to whatever runways are in operation at the airport?
Yes, so the Santa Maria Airport, let's see if I can go back a slide. The Santa Maria Airport is located just to the northwest of this property. And so this project has actually already been reviewed by the Airport Land Use Commission. There is a fairly recently adopted airport land use plan for the Santa Maria Airport. And so we did have the Airport Land Use Commission review this layout for compliance with the plan, and they did determine that it does comply with it as far as where the runways are located and the overflight zones.
Am I correct that the Airport Land Use Commission is the Council of Governments, SBCAG? Is that right?
That's correct. Yes. So this is an overview of the public services and some of the infrastructure improvements. Water is proposed to be provided by the Golden State Water Company. They have provided a preliminary can and will serve letter, and it does state in there that a supplemental water agreement is required. That is also per Watt 02 in the Orchid Community Plan, and so that is a requirement. And then for sewer, it would be the Laguna County Sanitation District. There's also an availability letter that's been provided by Laguna County stating that there is capacity to serve the project. Fire and police services would be provided by the city. The schools would be the Orchid Union School District and the Santa Maria Joint Union High School District. The developer would be paying fees to those districts, though, should the project move forward and be developed. And then there was a thorough review of the potential traffic issues surrounding the project. There were a number of traffic studies that were completed, and that resulted in identification of the need for a new traffic signal at Union Valley Parkway and Hummel Drive. And so the developer of this project would be responsible for installing that new traffic signal at that location, and also would be completing some widening of Union Valley Parkway and frontage improvements along Orchid Road as well. So I just wanted to include a couple of slides just showing where the project is in relation to the service area. So this is Golden State Water Company service area, and the project site is with the red star. And then the same with Laguna County Sanitation District. It's located within that area. So just to go over the environmental review a bit further, there is a certified environmental impact report completed. There was a thorough analysis of all of the issue areas, including air quality, greenhouse gas emissions, biological resources, cultural resources, transportation impacts, land use, public services, and water resources. There was an identification of an overwintering site for monarch butterflies located within an existing eucalyptus grove on the site. It's a fairly small grove, but it was identified by the Xerces Society. And so the project that has been reviewed in the EIR would necessitate removing that grove. Also, the eucalyptus grove itself is not in very good condition. We had an arborist take a look at the grove, and a number of the trees have been compromised over the years, and some do pose a safety concern should there be development within close proximity. And so there are still quite a few mitigation measures that have been required related to biological resources, but the mitigation measures itself just weren't quite enough to completely reduce the impact to less than significant. And so that Class 1 impact did remain there. The City Council did adopt a statement of overriding considerations for the impact and did certify the EIR. And all of the other impact areas are less than significant for the project. So there was a LAFCO comment letter that the city received in March of 2023, and that was comments received on the draft EIR during the initial circulation period of the document. And it requested that the city provide additional information regarding a number of topics, mainly LAFCO policies and factors for consideration, some additional information about the supplemental water agreement process, of potential affordability levels for future residential units. Also, to look at an alternative evaluation for the city to provide all services to the property, so that would include providing water and sewer service, and also impacts to the Orchid Community Plan and school enrollment impacts, and also just to get an idea of any city goals, policies, objectives, and programs that are covering the Orchid area. And so we reviewed that letter closely, and responses to all of these items have been provided in the EIR. There's a robust response to comment section in the EIR, and all of that information has been provided there. Just on a couple of different topics here, I did want to add that one moment. So related to the question regarding the affordability levels of the future residential units on the property, that's not known at this time. The developer is planning on building market rate units. It's not planned at this time to be an affordable housing project. It's planned to be market rate. It would just depend on the timing for construction of the units. The site is also not part of the city's identified, it's not an identified location in the city's housing element for RHNA purposes. In the 6th cycle housing element for the city had enough area zoned for residential development, that we did not need to look at rezoning or annexation or anything like that for housing purposes. So I think that was a question that was raised. And then the city, other than having some land use designations in the SOI area, the city doesn't have particular goals or policies covering the Orchid area. We do have the land use designations that are identified. Finally, there's a LAFCO policy consistency analysis that was completed in response to this letter, and that's also included in Appendix B in the EIR, and it goes over each of the different policies and response to that. So again, as Mr. Prater mentioned, we are going through the property tax exchange agreement process. Those discussions have been going well. I think we've had 2 meetings so far. There will also be most likely future LAFCO hearings, and then I already mentioned how the development applications would be reviewed in the future. One item I wanted to go back and just discuss again is when this project was moved forward by the Santa Maria City Council in November, there was a direction to city staff to have a meeting with the county, I think within 25 days, to discuss the proposal. And there was a meeting held in December with the county and the city. There were really no changes made to the proposal that came out of those meetings, and so the annexation application continued to move forward. And I think that's all I have for my presentation. I'm here for questions, and like I mentioned, I have other city staff with me, so thank you.
Okay.
I have a very simple question.
Commissioner Stark?
Is it possible, I don't know how long Exhibit B is, but that seems to be the critical, relevant part as far as we're concerned. It deals with our impact. Is it possible to extract that from the bulk of the whole EIR and have it distributed to the commission members? It would probably be helpful.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that and provide it to Mr. Prater, and then he could provide it to you.
It seemed to be that would be helpful for rather than us. I don't know how big your EIR is.
It's fairly large.
I'm guessing it's more than I could lift, for sure.
Yeah.
Any questions of Ms. Edie? No. Commissioner Nelson?
Yes, thank you, Chair Patino. So the zoning is going to change to 22 units per acre. So there's for the residential. So I'm just doing some back of the napkin math, and so that's a maximum for that zoning about 600 units. Is that what you guys?
That could be possible, although the EIR only analyzed the conceptual project that I showed you on this slide, which was 495. So that's what the EIR analyzed for future development on this site. But under the proposed zoning, it's 22 per acre. But you do have to take into account roadways, any open space requirements, setbacks, and things like that. So that would bring that number that you mentioned probably lower.
Down. But you're talking that part of your general plan amendment process or update you guys are going through would probably increase that to 30 units?
Yes, so we are going through a general plan update process currently, and it does propose to change the R3 zone, which is the higher density residential, from 22 to 30. That does align with the state direction as well.
And that would mean there'd be about over 800 potential units on that part. Is that more or less?
I don't know that you could get that many. You'd have to probably go back and do additional environmental review, of course, because, as I mentioned, it's the lower number that was analyzed on the site.
And I recall during the conversations you guys were having about the environmental document, and was something to do with that. There was on the commercial side, there were some deed restrictions. And did you guys ever get that resolved on getting something from the commitment from the previous owner on the uses that are studied in the environmental document?
I'd like to defer to the applicant on that question. I haven't received anything additional.
So the city hasn't got anything yet on that?
No, but I'd like to defer to the applicant because he may have more information.
Great. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Freeman?
So there's something I've been struggling to understand with that. I think maybe the people here, you'd be the best person to be able to try to explain it to me. Is how the water allocation is working for this. So I went back to the MSR that we did for water, wastewater, to look into what was mentioned at that time with respect to boundary issues on water. And the thing that I thought I was understanding there is that the Golden State Water Agency is what actually has the right to the water. It just can't receive the water physically. And so it's trading water with the city in order to get water from the city via its pipes, and is that what's going on, or?
You know, I'd actually like to defer that question to Shad Springer, who's our utilities director, and he's here to assist with that.
Oh, Mr. Springer?
Good afternoon, Commissioners. So Golden State Water, it is their service area, and they've indicated that their intent to serve. So it is their water pipes in the area. However, they do not have adequate water rights to provide water to the site. So how the supplemental agreement goes, the city has water rights available, and it would be an agreement between the city and the developer to commit those water rights to Golden State, who would then provide the wet water.
Okay, so Golden State Water Company is often in a position to procure water, but just does not have access to enough water, and so Santa Maria is offering to provide the water in this case because it's going to potentially annex this territory, or?
That's how the supplemental water agreements work. Yes.
Okay. I'm trying to think of the fully answer the question. We'll move on to a different question when I think about that. So there's a little property that's next to this, which is Foxwood Circle. When did we approve that? Do we know? Does anyone remember?
I don't recall.
Okay, thank you. All right, I'm going to think more about this water thing, and but I think Commissioner Seves has a question.
Commissioner Seves?
I just had a question. Has the commission previously been distributed the Orchid Community Plan? Do we have a copy of that?
I don't know. Some of them may have. I don't know that everyone does.
Is it possible to get a copy of that? I'd love to read that.
Sure.
I've got more on the water thing. I remembered the other part of my question.
Okay, Commissioner Freeman?
All right, thank you. So if we start the process of annexing territories in this area that are going to then end up utilizing water rights from the city, is the cities, the way that they've been allocating water and has been thinking about their future water use, designed to start thinking about the future potential water use of increased water usage of new properties that might be otherwise in Orchid that will end up getting brought into the city? The thing that was interesting to me is the idea that we're going to take the one property that's in Orchid and connect it to the city in order to get some aspect of city water over to there. But is the city really taking responsibility to provide water increasingly for potential future uses for Orchid going forward?
Sure. Sorry.
Go ahead, Mr. Springer.
The city council, back when the Orchid Community Plan was adopted and there were certain findings, and I think Ms. Edie mentioned the WADO 1 and the WADO 2, which required supplemental water for new uses in the Orchid area. The City Council of the City of Santa Maria evaluated its water supply portfolio and determined that it had water rights available to help supplement development in the Orchid area. And I do think it's an important distinction that the city is committing some of its water right to development in the Orchid area. And there was approximately 900 acre-feet of water made available to development in Orchid, and over half of that water has been committed to various developments throughout Orchid.
What percentage of that water that 900 acre-feet that was available for Orchid usage was being allocated towards this project?
I think this was approximately 150 acre-feet or so 150 out of the 900.
Okay, a considerable amount.
So I got a clarifying question,
Okay.
Mr. Springer.
Are you finished, Commissioner Freeman? Are you finished?
Yes, those are my.
Okay. Commissioner Nelson.
Yes, thank you, Chair Patino. So there is water that the city's had that was allocated for this project for Orchid growth.
Not for this project specifically. The council action would have been long before this project was.
Right. So there's 900 acre-feet or so, and you said half of that's been used. Is that right?
Correct. Committed to development in
and
Orchid.
there's still another 450,000 acre feet or 400 feet?
Maybe about 400 acre feet left or so.
Okay, that still hasn't been committed, but is available for orchid growth from that past policy?
From the past policy.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Stark?
I have a technical question related to that. Is there a specific document that embodies that policy that we could have?
Certainly, there are 2 council resolutions relative to that. I believe they were part of the documentation that went with the EIR in the process. So if not, we can certainly get you those.
Again, thank you. That would be helpful.
Okay, Commissioner Hartman?
Yeah. So does the policy, I mean, do you allocate the water for some uses and not others?
The this particular project, the city's direction has been for annexation. So that is the item that's before the commission today.
Is it only for residential use and not for commercial development?
No, it has been committed for commercial development. A lot of the development in Old Town Orchid had supplemental water, where you look at the boutique hotel that went in there. The commercial development that occurred at, or is occurring at, what is that, Clark and Stillwell, was subject of supplemental water as well, which is a completely commercial site.
And if it remained in the county, could it get water for commercial development?
The city council has not taken action on whether or not this project in the county. The application that came before the city was for annexation, and the direction of council to staff was to pursue annexation through LAFCO.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. Yeah. No. Commissioner Freeman?
So I guess now I've got a further question. So these other commercial sites that were within Orchid that were receiving supplemental water, are these other, these are in the county property? Like these weren't annexes, of course, we would have seen them on the map.
Correct, and they were not adjacent to the city limits either.
And so the policy that had been put in place for providing this 900 acre feet of water to the Orchid community was under the premise that much of it might be going to the county. Because, of course, much of it already has been going to the county.
Yes.
Okay. And so there's something that I've been, and this is, I'm just serving as a question for you, as a question for the zeitgeist in the audience to take up later in public comment, but I keep hearing meanderings of some kind of, and seeing in some of the public comment letters that have been addressed, aspect, like some issue going on with respect to the city of Santa Maria withholding water from the Orchid community unless this gets annexed. And again, this is just something I've only heard from reading these public comment letters and trying to understand. This is not something that anyone has come to me and talked to me about or anything. And I'm wondering, like, what might that be referring to? Is there anything that has actually happened at city council meetings with respect to water? Is this something that is in the water within the staff at the agency, or is this something that this is completely falsehood? Like, what's going on here?
Right. So the city council has not taken action on selling water for a current project on this site. Like I said, staff is following the direction of council to pursue annexation for this site. It, based on the information submitted in the EIR, it seemed appropriate. It's adjacent to the city property. It's infill project, so it certainly isn't a expansion of urban sprawl. And in fact, there's even a consideration that if it weren't annexed, it would develop in the county anyway. So it's certainly not those sorts of things. So that was the direction of staff and recommendation by council.
Great. Thank you.
Any other questions?
I had a question about fire, which may not be your purview.
I hope not, but we do have the city's fire chief here.
Okay.
We do provide the water for fire protection.
And this is our fire chief, Brad Dandridge.
Hello.
Good afternoon.
So the city of Santa Maria is participating in the new regional dispatch and contributing to that. And at least the way we've been promoting it is that it will guarantee the closest resource will respond, and we'll have an integrated system to make that a reality county-wide. So the county has the closest fire station. Santa Maria is a little further away. So I guess my first question, does Santa Maria have, if this goes through, plans to develop a new fire station? And then I guess or rely on the county for ambulance or for medical calls as well as for fire calls. And this is a question, I guess, for Mr. Prater. Does a tax exchange agreement cover if the county has to respond a lot more than the city to these matters?
Shall I answer first?
Yeah.
Commissioner Hartman, thank you for the question through the chair. Recently, you are absolutely correct. Actually, beginning next week, May 12th, the week of the 12th, the RFCC is opening. We are going to that closest unit response. In regards to the fire service and fire service capabilities of the Santa Maria Fire Department, on March 28th, we opened an engine at Fire Station 6 at the airport. That station from the intersection of Orchid and Union Valley is 1.8 miles away from that area. Currently, the county fire department, Station 21, is 1.6. So our closest station to cover to provide services to that area would be 0.2 miles further than the current stations that the county has right there. We also have fire stations 4 and fire stations 2 that are approximately 3 miles away to ensure service to fires is appropriate. And as you mentioned, starting next week with the closest unit response, we have a commitment with County Fire Chief. Chief Hartwig is there also. We have a commitment with all the county fire departments to send the most appropriate resource to help one another and all. So our fire station, our capability of providing services 0.2 miles further than their current stations right now.
And then just hypothetically, and this is, I think, for Mr. Prater, if we end up responding more so that it's kind of disproportionate, what recompense would the county get?
So through the chair, Commissioner Hartman, to answer that is the property tax negotiation can include a component of fire and how that works. If agreement is not reached or agreement is reached, that it all transfers to the city. And years down the road, you decide that Station 21 is actually responding more often or not, agreements can be reopened, potentially.
And then I guess I have a similar question about CSA 5 and parks.
Yeah. All of that is up for negotiation as part of the property tax exchange. Whatever resolves as an agreement of that is what will be presented to the commission as we take formal hearings, and you'll have knowledge in advance of whether or not tax dollars are coming out of those two entities or not, and the reasons for that.
Okay, and there's good data that is used to figure that out?
That's up to the negotiators.
Okay.
Commissioner Hartman, if I may, through the chair.
Yes.
I just have one more comment in regards to response to that area. The county and Santa Maria Fire Department have actually done preliminary analysis right now in regards to going to this regional dispatch closest unit. And right now, there hasn't been a determination. We're still looking at the incidents that we responded to in 2023 in regards to which agency there would be a dependency. So we are in constant communication in regards to that to see who would be running into the areas, supporting one another through this endeavor, through this partnership collaboration that we've entered into.
Oh, so now I have a big, I'm not sure that I understand what you just told me. You're saying that you're actually having formal negotiations about who covers what area because it isn't based on jurisdiction.
No, ma'am. Just to clarify a little bit through the chair, we're not having discussions on who's going to cover what area. The closest unit is going to go. The most appropriate unit is going to be responding to all emergencies within the county. To clarify what I was saying is, with the addition of Engine 6, the county fire chief and I are having conversations to look at analysis of data to see not the requirements, but to see which agency would be going, because we do not want an abundance of reliance of one agency or the other. This is a partnership that we've agreed to, but we didn't want one agency to be reliant on another in whole, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, and if I may follow up, the county has paramedics on their trucks, and the city, as I understand it, it's EMT, and so I guess dispatch would determine how serious and get the closest. I mean, how will that be reconciled?
Thank you. Yes, ma'am, through the chair. You're absolutely correct. The one difference between the county and city of Santa Maria, the county fire department provides for advanced life ALS. We are at a BLS, basic life support level. So there is a difference in regards to that particular service that is provided by the two departments.
And again, I wonder how that will then be taken into account when assigning at dispatch who goes to, what call.
Those discussions are being had right now through the fire chiefs. Yes, ma'am. We are ensuring that to the community that we will provide the best possible service to all the residents of our community. That's our commitment to one another. Thank you.
Commissioner Stark?
If I might ask the chief a slightly different question. Is the fire apparatus that is dedicated to the airport, is that restricted in the calls that it can make, or do you have to have a minimum presence at the airport with respect to the equipment that's there?
Commissioner Stark, thank you for the question. Through the chair, you're absolutely correct. We have two apparatus over there. We have an ARF rig dedicated to the airport that by contract is not allowed off the airport premise. The engine that we just opened on March 28th is one that allows us the opportunity to respond outwards.
Thank you. That answers my question.
Thank you.
Chair.
Oh, Commissioner Nelson?
Yes, thank you. One question about that. Are they both fully staffed, or is it using the same staff for both apparatuses at this point?
Commissioner Nelson, yes, they're both fully staffed. We have 3 fully staffed on the engine, on engine 6, and we have the 1 ARF member that is committed to the ARF rig at the airport.
So if there's a call at the new development, you can leave one person left at the airport while the other 3 respond to a call?
Yes, sir. The 3 that would respond to the medical aid or fire would respond off the airport premise. The 1 dedicated to the airport, as it has been since 2011, I believe, is committed to the airport, and they are not allowed off.
Gotcha.
With the 1.
That helps me. Then I guess the question is for Mr. Prather. I think the county's planning on building a fire station just adjacent to this development. I think they purchased some property. Typically, fire stations like that are sometimes built with development impact fees. And the development impact fees typically pay for development that's adjacent to projects or within a certain distance. Would that be potentially part of the property tax exchange agreement discussion as well?
Commissioner Nelson, to the chair, if you will, any future proposals that may or may not come forward really isn't as germane to this annexation process. So we can't contemplate some future fire station that may happen or not. To be blunt about whether or not we think the service model is best under the proposal or some other method.
I'm sorry, it wasn't really what I was asking about. I was asking about actually part of the property tax exchange agreement. How does development impact fees play into that? Because this is actually more than just fire, but fire is one that kind of brought the attention, up for me is, if this development move forward, where do those impact fees go? Do they?
Yeah,
is that up
are
for
all
negotiation?
issues. Pardon me. Those are all issues for the negotiators on both sides to put on the table.
Excellent. Thank you.
And I think that's fair enough. And at the end of the day, hopefully there's some sort of arrangement that all sides they think is a fair exchange.
Perfect. Thank you.
I have a question.
Oh, Commissioner Hartman. Oh, Commissioner Aceves?
I guess my light doesn't.
I can't see it because our executive director is blocking the
Would you
view
sit
for
low
me.
in your chair, please?
I'm sorry. You can wave to me.
I'm a little confused on the. First of all, this whole new project, as far as closest available, I think is an outstanding idea. And you may be driving through, the county may be driving through the city, and all of a sudden, they're there, or vice versa. So, but I'm confused as to how this will affect the tax exchange if we have a long-standing policy of things like mutual aid. So I need some clarification on that.
We don't know. We don't have that.
Can somebody help me with that? I mean, when you go on a mutual aid call, you're not going to charge the people you're helping
Unless it
if it
gets
happens
way
to
out of
be
whack,
outside
I think.
in the county. So, I mean, there's a whole, my understanding was the mutual aid agreements, not only for police and fire, long-standing agreements, you share the expenses unless the state comes in and reimburses you for something, which, doesn't happen all the time. So why is this part of a tax exchange agreement as to who's going to get the most work done if it's going to be the closest unit available?
I was thinking the same thing on that, because we have mutual aid on so many other things, so. Do you want to respond to that, Chief
Commissioner
Dandridge?
Aceves, if I may respond through the chair. In regards to mutual exchange and funding and compensation to one another, our commitment in the fire service level, at least in the county, has been that of partnership. We will not charge one another for those types of services. That was our commitment. We believe it's the right thing to do for our communities, to provide that. Mutual aid in other aspects, such as the state, when we go help, such as the LA fires, is a different component, is a different beast that we are tackling. But in regards within the county, we've made that commitment to one another where we will provide the best service appropriate.
Okay, any other questions here? Comments? Okay, thank you, Chief Dandridge.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Prater, do we go on to county staff now?
The developer team to give their presentation. I'm
Okay.
sorry, the developer team will give their presentation. Just to add maybe 2 cents why they're setting up.
Okay.
On this service model, using fire as their example, that is a factor that this commission has to weigh. Each of you will weight that in your decision on how serious it needs to be over one other factor that you're considering. At the end of the day, the service model will be what is proposed. It may change, it may not, by the time this thing gets to you, based on exchange of agreements or not. If at the end of the day, the model is annexed to the city, city takes over response, they have this now integrated dispatch system that is closest response, that is the service model. You have to weigh the effects of that as to whether or not you want to approve the annexation ultimately. So that's how these eventually get translated to, on your scales of justice, how does this feather out? And does it tip one way or the other? And is one weighted fire service heavier than the need for housing or water, or any one of those things? So with that,
Thank you.
we'll proceed.
Okay. Mr. Stolte.
Thank you so much, commissioners, for having me today. Again, I don't want to underplay the severity of our letter that was submitted on Monday. However, as I said earlier, I do think it's very important to continue to educate the community and work through this process. This has been something that we've been working on officially from an annexation standpoint since 2021. So I'm Michael Stolte. I'm going to introduce Richard's Ranch. Next slide, please. Oh, I have it? Okay. Where is it? Okay. It's under a mountain of EIRs. So a little bit about context for this site. So this is one of the rare urban infill sites that exist in this county. I believe Mona, I don't believe you're here, but I apologize if I misstate your last name, Miyasoto. the CEO of the county, they did a study a few years back, and I believe in a presentation she said that 5% of this entire county is available for housing when you consider agricultural properties and zoning and things like that. Of that, less than 1% of our county is available for infill development. We find ourselves in quite the housing crisis. I believe the state has estimated that we needed to build about 1.5 million more homes over the last 20 years than we have, and we would have to make that magically appear today to be able to stabilize our housing prices. So it is a serious situation, and it is why the state has been applying as many strong laws that they have. A little bit about us. So we're local builders. I was born and raised on the Central Coast, and I lived in Orchid when we purchased this site. So I regularly drove back and forth on Union Valley Parkway and would shop at the only grocery store in Orchid, which is Albertsons, and I'm extremely familiar with the town. You know, as I drove back and forth on Union Valley Parkway, as someone who builds for a living and understands our housing crisis, this site is extremely unusual, and we had to ask ourselves, what is this thing doing here? And why hasn't it moved off the dime? As you can see, housing has been completely built around it for the last 20 or 30 years. A little bit about property history and how we've gotten here. So the site has a serious dilemma. It is 44 acres of infill site that has been planned to be developed in the community of Orchid since the 1980s. It is considered a central hub for the Santa Maria Valley. And yet, it has been completely undeveloped and been developed around. So there's lots of history here, but effectively, the challenge is predominantly water. Back in the 1990s, a water adjudication took place in this valley to protect the water rights of the city. I believe even Napomo was involved, Orchid, the farmers, etc. And effectively what was happening is we were going to get ourselves in a water problem, and there were a lot of lawsuits flying back and forth. And so the adjudication took place, and as part of that adjudication, Orchid put in a policy, WADO 2, that effectively said, we don't have access to supplemental water in this valley. And so any development that takes place in Orchid in the future has to go get that water from some other place. And so that's the history. What's been challenging about that history is that you do see developments in Orchid. Those developments, at least for the last 20 years, have historically been supplemental water that has been sold to those Orchid developments from the city of Santa Maria. The challenge has been that the city of Santa Maria does not always give water for commercial, especially in this case where the entire left border of this site, which is the west, is the city of Santa Maria. And so this site has effectively been orphaned for the last 30 years. What's more challenging about this situation is that, or perhaps unfortunate, but I think it's important that folks understand the history, is that a state water project then was taking place at approximately the same time. You know, all these communities, including San Luis Obispo County, Santa Barbara County, had the potential to take part in this state water project, but it's very expensive. And so at the time, the city of Santa Maria decided to spend a lot of their funds, millions of dollars, to partake in the state water project so that they would have water for growth and in the future. And Golden State, the water purveyor for the area, also was going to partake and buy water so that Orchid would have water for the future. And effectively, Golden State had kind of reserved 3,000 acre feet for, I believe 3,000 acre feet for their future, which would have been enough for Orchidians and Orchid to develop probably in my lifetime. However, that had to go to the Public Utilities Commission And there was a group in Orchid that was concerned about, frankly, for obvious reasons, concerned about how expensive their water bills were going to be to pay for all this state water that they may not even need, right? Those people already had water. And so those folks went up to Sacramento. There was also, frankly, a bit of an anti-growth component of it. It's well documented. And those folks lobbied the PUC, and the PUC ordered Golden State to relinquish, I believe, all but about 500 acre feet, which had funds available for it. And 2,500 acre feet was then sold to Goleta by Golden State. And that kind of has set the history. So Goleta effectively, in a weird way, kind of has the water that Orchid originally was going to have. And so here you have a situation where one city has partook in a very expensive endeavor and has water, and you have another area that decided not to. The result is that this particular site has been extremely disproportionately affected by this policy and this history. And just to prove this out, so Walmart purchased this site in 2003. Walmart wanted to try to solve this problem. It had already been zoned this way for at least 20 years at that point. And Walmart tried for 18 years to figure out how to put a super center on this site. They spent considerable funds and time trying to figure out how to develop that in the county and to receive water, and they could not. They also attempted to receive water from Santa Maria. They were not able to receive it. So in 2021, we purchased it from Walmart. So let's talk, before I get into a little bit more about it, why this is so important. This is a chart that SB CAG put together recently. It projects essentially the job growth and the populous growth in different areas of the county until 2050, so effectively for the next 25 years. Santa Barbara is the second city to the left. I think we all consider Santa Barbara a pretty big place. As you can see, Santa Barbara is only projected to grow by about 7,200 people in the next 25 years. That giant blue bar is the Santa Maria Valley. The Santa Maria Valley is expected to grow by about 35,000 people over the next 25 years. We are already in the middle of a housing crisis. We have some serious decisions to make as a community. And to compound the matter, the state is also pressuring and putting considerable laws in place to make sure that local municipalities do this. And what that effectively means is that local municipalities will lose more and more control if they don't proactively build housing in a way that works for the community. Also, unfortunately, because of this history, what effectively has happened is that Orchid has had water for housing, but really has not really had much water for commercial. And so it's not right. Like, Orchid has one grocer, it has a couple gas stations. It is not built out effectively like you would typically see in most places. Albertsons is a great grocery store. I grocered there for a very long time. They have great food. They are able to charge more than they probably should because they're effectively a geographic monopoly. Now, I know Grocery Outlet's going to come in, and I think that's great. It's almost certainly I'm going to discuss our deed restrictions and things like that. But I have every intent, and we have a lot of history of wanting and trying and to put another grocer in this site for this very reason. But in addition, we have other commercial services, and one way or another, this site is going to help this community provide much needed commercial services. It's effectively, for lack of a better term, not to be hyperbolistic, but it is a food desert to an extent. So why annexation? So this site has been zoned commercial since, I believe, the 1980s, but for sure since 1997. And yet it has no water for commercial. For the last 30 years, that could have been addressed. That's not a landowner's requirement. That is a societal requirement. Why has this site sat C2 with no commercial for 30 years? It could have been rezoned to housing at any time. It could have supplied this community with much needed housing for the last 30 years. It has not. Walmart tried for 18 years. We spent 3 years working with the county to try to figure out the zoning. I had discussions with Supervisor Nelson to try to figure out water and how to make this project happen in the county. And ultimately, they had a bunch of ideas out of, to be frank, there were a lot of potential ideas. We sent those to our water use attorneys. We sent those to our planners. They're not viable for a project in the near future for this site. So we had a decision to make after spending considerable time. After we bought it, we spent almost 9 months configuring how to make this happen in the county, and that's not including 2 years before of me working with county staff trying to discuss and figure this out. So there were no viable solutions. No opportunities were presented to us. We initiated annexation in November of 2021, and we told the county 2 things. We told the county, first off, this is going to take a while. If you feel like you can get water, give us a call, get the water, and we'll recalibrate. That was 4 years ago. We do not have water today in the county. But also, I made an overture to Supervisor Nelson that if he was concerned about, I understand the pragmatic issue here. I understand the concern of Orkinians as far as it going into the city of Santa Maria and the idea of losing some kind of planning control. I told Supervisor Nelson that I would work with him on a monthly basis, whatever it took to make sure that he had a hand in its development and processing. Lori Tamara was part of that meeting. So let's talk a little bit about the benefits of annexation. There are some inaccurate rumors that this is like a winner-take-all situation. It's not. There are rumors that the community of Orchid desperately needs tax funds. It does. We all do. The reality is that if this site were to stay in the county, we're talking, I believe the county's budget is over $2 billion. Don't quote me on that, but does somebody want to correct me? $1.6 billion, okay? The tax revenue from this site from a net basis, if you combined the county and the city based on the estimates we have, is like $2.3 million. So the effect and the way the county does it, and I'm not an expert on this, but my understanding is that it's proportional, right? So tax revenue made in Orchid doesn't stay in Orchid. It goes into the county's coffers. It's split up to support the entire county. So this site staying in the county is not going to directly impact Orchid's tax funds other than its proportional share into the entire county budget. As part of state law, a tax exchange has to take place. A lot has already been talked about it. It's mutually beneficial on purpose. This is not supposed to be a winner-take-all situation. As part of an annexation, if accepted, this tax exchange should take place in good faith, and both parties are estimated to benefit. We're talking about a county that has not been able to do anything with this site for 30 years. Being able to share the taxes from this site being developed is a win. We hired an independent consulting firm. I believe the city and potentially the county are also hiring firms to look at the tax implications. These are our estimates. The city would essentially benefit $1.2 million of gross revenue. $2.2 million of gross revenue. After all the encumbrances that come in taking care of a site like this, the city would essentially benefit as $1.3 million. The county would benefit as part of an estimated tax exchange agreement that is normal, would benefit 1.2 million in gross and about $1 million net for this site. It is close to an even split based on our consultants' estimates of what is normal for a tax exchange. But lastly, and most importantly, time is sometimes considered in these events, right? Housing is getting more expensive. Us as landowners have taken on an immense amount of work and time, cost, and expense. There are other projects we could be working on. We're working on this project. But also, this project is estimated to generate $1.7 million, I'm rounding up just a smidge, $1.7 million to California schools, of which those funds get directly sent to Orchid schools, but that money will follow the students based on their enrollments. Now, the state does back those funds in, but I would say given the current budgetary issues going on with the federal government and the state, the fact that the local schools are being further supported by the site is a big deal. And lastly, our fees associated with the site are estimated to be about $3.7 million. Those fees go proportionately to wherever the kids are going to go. So the elementary kids are expected to go to Orchid. Those funds will go to Orchid. The high school, these kids generally go to the Santa Maria High School. Those funds will go to the high school. So they follow the students wherever they go. When we took this project on, effectively, we're trying to solve a problem, right? It was well documented at this point. We knew what we were getting into, and frankly, we didn't know what we were getting into. This has been a lot more challenging than we expected. But we reviewed, once we were trying to make a determination on, okay, we don't have a great solution with the county. How do we solve this problem? Okay, there's the potential for annexation. We hired LAFCO attorneys and we reviewed, does this site make sense? Can we do this? Is this reasonable? Is this good governance? The reality is that we went through the entire Santa Barbara LAFCO manual, and specifically, there are lots of things in there that are relevant. One of the biggest, most important things in LAFCO is to protect ag land. There have been some annexations recently that have had some challenge because of that. If we're trying to protect ag land, an urban infill site is the most beneficial and important way to address the needs of this community before we have to do that. But lastly, we went through all of the criteria associated with annexations for cities. There are 10 major points. I think 6 of them are, if you meet these things, these are positive criteria for you to be annexed, and if you don't meet these things, these are negative criteria. Our site, it's either not applicable, it's just not applicable to our site, or we meet all of those criteria. We are in the city's sphere of influence, which essentially means that this site is expected to go into the city at some point. A little bit about the project, which really, to me, is like the most important part. So we worked on this site since 2018, and we didn't decide to annex it until 2021. I engaged with North County planning staff. I don't think she's here anymore, but I spent a lot of time with Kim. And Orchid Community Plan has a key site for this site. Unfortunately, as we started going through it, that key site plan was from 1997, was before Union Valley Parkway had even been put onto the site. And although Union Valley Parkway was planned in that key site plan, the entire Orchid bump out that you see was never put into the key site plan. And so what the county had told us back in 2018 through 2021 was, we do have a key site plan, but the problem is that you're going to have to redo the key site plan because it's not effective and it can't be relied on. And so you're going to have to go through this whole process again, which was fine. We were prepared to do that. But the problem obviously was water. But as we were planning this site and going through, we based our entire modern project off of the community's plan for this site. So the Orchid Community Plan from 1997 was the brainchild for this modern development of the site. Something that's been talked about, so the north part of the site is where the airport flower zones impact. So the whole site couldn't be moved to housing if we wanted to. It's not appropriate. It's actually possible, but I would argue it's not appropriate. So it's important to retain a part of the project that's not housing. And so that's why commercial is still relevant and important in this site. And so we retained that in the north, especially with my understanding and history of Orchid and needing neighborhood and commercial services. I thought it was important. We are in the middle of a housing crisis. This is no longer a site. Union Valley Parkway is going to be a 4-lane expressway. Highway 135 is 2 lanes. I believe the city is going to make it 3 north of Union Valley Parkway. But long story short, this is an urban site that can take on significant amounts of housing. Now, in reality, we've talked a little bit about the zoning counts. So we're zoned for 22 units per acre. The blended housing of this site is around 18 units per acre between the townhomes and apartments. Regularly right now, modern developments for sites like this in this area are closer to 30 to 40 units per acre. So we put our best foot forward. We did a lot of community meetings. We understood that folks did not want an ultra dense project next to them, but we also understand that we need to provide a considerable amount of housing. So this was our best foot forward as far as blending that.
Mr. Stolte, I don't want to interrupt right now, but you have about 3 more minutes left.
Okay.
Thank you.
So this is some renderings of the project. Something that I want to say is, so we've had dozens of community meetings about this project. I've personally door knocked with most of the neighbors and talked with them. We've put in a lot of components locally from feedback from neighbors. The townhomes on this project were specifically asked by Vandenberg. That's something that they really need in this community that nobody has been building. And so we went ahead and planned for 100 townhomes in the project, and we used those townhomes to buffer the current residential neighborhoods from the 3-story apartments. We also blocked, oh goodness. We also, Dancer Avenue was a street that was to the south of the project that a lot of folks had concerns about. We proactively said, we'll just put a gate on that. It will be allowed to be a crash gate for emergency services, but we'll work around that, and that's in our plans. We're going to proactively put a stoplight in at Hummel. Hummel is not safe right now. It's shown in the EIR. The EIR was done in 2022. It is still in its current state today. It's not on our site, but it's dangerous, and it's something that we're going to proactively fix. So I want to address something, and it's very important. One of the big things that we hear lately is, we really actually like the project. We just don't want it to, we just want it to stay in the county. The county has had every opportunity over the last 5 years to address this problem. We engaged with the county for 3 years. A viable water source was not provided. We started our annexation. We told them to give us a call if they could find water. 4 years later, there is no water. The county had us in their housing element last spring. So this site could have been rezoned to housing in the county, which would have allowed 3/4 of it to be able to be developed for housing to be able to be supported to this community. And they unanimously voted against it. So it retained and stayed all commercial with no water. That was this last spring. We were then asked to go into a DA agreement, which nobody else was. We went into that DA agreement and spent 4 or 5 months working with the county. The intent and understanding of that DA agreement was that we were going to be rezoned as part of the housing element. It was stated in the meeting. We then, 4 months in, were told, actually, you will not be rezoned as part of the housing element. You will need a general plan amendment, a rezone, a key site update, and you will restart CEQA. This is CEQA. This took 2.5 years. This is a 2,500-page document. This has been responding to LAFCO's questions as well as the community's questions. I think we had 1,200 comments that were responded to. And lastly, because we heard and were told that we were not going to get rezoned before the housing element, we filed a builder's remedy, because ultimately this site cannot be used in its current state as commercial in the county. And so we filed our builder's remedy. We then were not rezoned in the housing element. And we've been trying to work through that builder's remedy with the county. And we were deemed incomplete 3 times over 8 months. We had to go through 2 appeal hearings, and we're semi-deemed complete. And we are now in litigation, or we are now requesting litigation. I'm going to circle back and say, we purchased this site to try to solve a problem. It's a problem that frankly should have been solved a long time ago. This site has always been planned to be a resource to this community. It's not urban sprawl. It's not cutting down thousands of oaks. This is an urban infill site that this community has visioned to see for 40 years. We're simply trying to resolve that issue. We've done it on our own dime. We've spent 5+ years working on it. We've spent over $1 million to get to this point. We want to move forward. I'm a builder. We're in the middle of a housing crisis. I'll be available for questions.
Thank you. Any questions of the commissioners? Oh, Commissioner Freeman.
Very, very narrowly, you had a slide with tax implications with respect to revenue neutrality in the beginning of this presentation. Was merely on property? That was that one. Merely on property taxes, or does this also, revenue neutrality in general, I'm not sure, apply towards potential sales taxes that would be generated from the commercial properties that are being located there?
Yeah, so I'm not an expert on it, but I have reviewed it extensively, and it is both.
Thank you. I have another question that's not really for you, so I'll save it for a little bit later.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay. So I will open this up for public comment at this time. We have, excuse me. Oh, the county. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, county presentation. You have 10 minutes. Okay.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the Commission. My name is Lisa Plowman. I'm the Director of Planning and Development for the County of Santa Barbara, and I'm here to represent the county's perspective on the proposed annexation. I do want to just start by confirming what Mr. Stoltley had said about the county being supportive of a project on this property. It's interesting, this county site was identified in the Orcutt Community Plan for actually both residential and commercial. It has a land use designation with residential on the southern 40 acres essentially, and a commercial land use designation on the north. And I think the county has run into challenges in terms of finding a path forward for this project in the county, but still supports the concept of it happening inside the county. So, as everybody has affirmed for you today, the Richards Ranch site is located on Key Site 26 in the Orcutt Community Plan. The Orcutt Community Plan identified a lot of key sites that were important to the overall long-term development of the community. And Key Site 26 was a site that was critical for commercial services. There are limited commercial services in the community today, and this site has the potential to meet that demand. So some of the key public interest objectives that we should be talking about is there a need for annexation? And we don't think a need has been sufficiently demonstrated. We disagree with some of the city's responses regarding the justification questionnaire. Importantly, this is not infill development for the city. It would cause a peninsula surrounded by the unincorporated county on 3 sides. And the only contiguous boundary to the city is divided by Highway 135. So some things that we want to be talking about too, and the LAFCO Commission will be considering is the logical extension of services, right? So this site is essentially served by the county in every way with the exception of water. And water could be provided through an agreement without annexation. And so currently right now, the site would be served by Laguna Sanitation District. If the city were to annex it, they would have to negotiate with the county to maintain that service. If not, then the county would have, or the city would have to extend their sewer services down to the site. So we think it's a less efficient model to deliver municipal services through annexation. Housing need. So there was, I think, an error in the city's response in the questionnaire about a pending application of the county. Indeed, as confirmed by Mr. Soley, they have a builder's remedy application that has, let's see, 750 residential units and about 160,000 square feet of commercial, most of that being storage, because it is low water using, is my expectation. The development of the site, as I've mentioned.
Excuse me, Ms. Plowman.
Hi.
Commissioner Stark has a question.
I just like a clarification. Is the numbers, the pending application for housing development, is that the Builder's Remedy project or is that something else?
That's correct. That's the Builder's Remedy project.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's the only housing development that's proposed for the site is that specific project.
Correct.
Thanks.
Yeah. So, currently the city's application has 450 units. The Builder's Remedy application has 750 units. We would, if it were brought into the county, probably would look to develop a higher density residential development on that site, potentially, would certainly be considered by decision makers. But we had anticipated rezoning it to 30 to 40 units per acre in the housing element. That's what we were looking at for the southern portion, roughly 40 acres. And we have, all of us, as we all know, have very high numbers when it comes to responding to the state's requirements under RENA allocation. Keysite 26 has a designation for a mix of residential and commercial, as I've talked about, and office professional. That's currently under the Orcutt Community Plan. And as I mentioned, the future development of the site would achieve the regional commercial needs and objectives for the Orcutt community. Doesn't need to be annexed.
Could I?
Hang on, Commissioner Hartman has.
So that second bullet is an assertion. Can you support it?
Can support it in the sense that if we had water for the site, then it would meet the commercial needs within the Orcutt Community Plan. So that is the linchpin, right? Is the provision of water. And as you've heard from Mr. Springer, we've had arrangements with the city of Santa Maria in the past to provide water to different commercial properties in the community. Keysite 2 being the most recent. So infrastructure efficiency. So as we said, the county serves the site essentially for all the services with the exception of water. Annexation, in our view, would create infrastructure inefficiency. The sewer would have to be extended down to this site if the city was going to connect into it. It would create distortions in the maintenance and the boundaries of the roadways, dysfunction in addressing some of the traffic impacts, because most of those are county roads. Inefficiencies resulting in the detachment from the North County Lighting District. And I should have mentioned this at the beginning, I have our fire chief here and Department of Public Works Director Chris Snedden that can answer some questions that might come from the commission. And one of Public Works' key concerns was that it would create these roadways that were partially owned by the city and partially owned by the county, UVP being one of them, and that it would create this dysfunction in addressing some of the traffic impacts that would result from the project. As many of those are county developments in the area would require roadway improvements. So here's a map that demonstrates the county roads and Keysite 26. And annexation would create a circulation and maintenance island, essentially. And there's a long-term plan for infrastructure improvements in the Orcutt Community Plan. As you can see, a number of those have gone forward. We had the Hummel extension in 2008, a UVP Bradley intersection in 2011, the Orcutt frontage road and signals in 2014. The UVP Bradley signal is 25-26, And then UVP widening is in design currently. With respect to fire, so fire service optimally provided by County Fire due to the proximity of the stations that we have and the current planned resources and capabilities. The fire stations are located closer to the site than the city stations. Planned Station 25 is 0.4 miles from the site, and County Fire would respond to structure fires and medical emergencies and provides the advanced life support, which is a higher level of care. This gives you, it's probably hard to read, but I'm going to try and show you here. So this is the current closest stations, right? This is 2.5 miles away. This is 1.5 miles away. And then you have Santa Maria's at 1.75 and the other one at 2.75. So here's the future station here, which would be quite close. And then EMS response is mapped here, showing that the county effectively could serve the site more efficiently and more quickly than the city. In terms of orderly growth, as we've talked about, the Orcutt Community Plan is the general plan for the Orcutt community and guides the development of this particular area, including all of the key sites. Taking this site out of the Orcutt Community Plan does have an impact to that community, and at some point that community may wish to have more local control. They may wish to form a CFD and have some local governance, and annexing the site could impact that viability. Annexation would undermine the OCP and comprehensive planning for the community in our view. So in terms of standards for annexations to cities, we've done our analysis. We submitted a letter to LAFCO, and essentially we have found that it does not satisfy 4 of the 5 factors that are considered to be favorable for annexation, and demonstrates that 2 factors that are unfavorable to approval of an annexation. And I'll just go through those quickly. So the first factor is it would eliminate islands, corridors, or other distortions of existing boundaries. That's not the case in this instance. This would create a peninsula into the county. The proposed area is urban in character. Urban development is imminent, requiring municipal or urban type services. And in our view, it's not necessary to annex it to provide urban services. The county can already do that as part of the Orcutt Community Plan. Number 3, the area can be provided also urban services by agency as shown by agency service plan, and proposals would enhance the efficient provision of urban services. And I think I've already made the county's case, which is we don't believe it's necessary that we, as the county, can provide the urban services necessary to serve an urban project. And 5, the request is by an agency for annexation of its publicly owned property used for public purposes, and as we know that this is a private development. In terms of the factors that are unfavorable to approval of annexation, and that is the proposal would create an island or a corridor or a peninsula of the city within the county area, and we believe that it does. It projects out from Highway 35 to the east. It would be surrounded on 3 sides by the county, as I mentioned. And then lastly, the boundaries of the proposed annexation don't include a logical service area or otherwise improperly drawn. So the annexation, in our view, would create illogical boundaries forming a new peninsula, and annexation is not a logical extension of services as we can serve it. Just a couple of things that were raised by Fire. They had submitted 2 letters related to this annexation by the city of Santa Maria, and those are dated January 23rd, 2023 and March 3rd, 2025. These letters contain similar information to what we're talking about today about the levels of service and that can be provided by the county and the plans for the new station. In conclusion, It's the county's perspective that the site should remain in the county. We would like to be able to work with the city in order to achieve an agreement on how to provide water to it. And we don't think there's any public benefit associated with the proposed annexation. That concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions. And I said Mr. Sten's here and Chief Hartwig is
Any
here.
questions? Commissioner Stark?
Yes, I have a question related to, you mentioned Community Services District. Am I correct that in fact LAFCO approved a proposal for a Community Services District in I think 2000, and it was the tax that was to accompany it was voted down. Am I right with that? I'm pretty sure I'm right.
I believe you're right. Yeah.
Has there been any recent attempt to ascertain the present feasibility of a community services district for the Orcutt Community Plan area that you're aware of?
Commissioner Stark, I am not personally aware of them. There may be an effort in the community, and I think maybe Commissioner Nelson might be able to speak to that.
Yes.
Commissioner Nelson?
Yes. Our office is currently working with our Community Services Department to send out an RFP for a feasibility study for both a CSD feasibility as well as potentially an incorporation feasibility for the Orchid area.
Is that going to be brought up in the upcoming budget, if I might ask?
That is correct.
Commissioner Freeman?
Yeah, and on that note, to the extent to which anyone in the audience might know of anything going on with that, I would be interested in hearing about that. I know that was something that ended up affecting the Isla Vista and Goleta areas very strongly when a commercial district was taken right next to Isla Vista for being able to later on construct self-governance. I have a question for you, though. So it was mentioned about the years of attempting to get water for this project with the county. I'm wondering what kinds of conversations have been going, what kind of requests with Santa Maria, what kind of response has been coming from Santa Maria with respect to the trying to get water for this project without an annexation, or has there been much discussion?
Let me make sure I get your last name right.
Oh, Freeman.
Freeman,
Yeah.
that's right, Freeman. Commissioner Freeman.
Jane works too.
There have been a number of discussions that have happened. I have not been involved in all of those discussions, but I have participated in some discussions with city staff. And the hope is potentially that could be worked out in the future. I don't know, that has to be something that the city council decides, but definitely there have been efforts made to advance that.
It's interesting kind of zooming out, right, how much power goes to the people who have the resources that were able to be purchased when they were cheap. And so in this case, Santa Maria getting that water, or now Goleta having gotten the water that might have gone to Orchid, and its ability to do all these projects. And so this is like a lot of this really does seem to be hinging on how this water ends up working out. And so I'm really, really curious to see like what options are available for Orchid here with respect to being able to get water on for things other than maybe going through Santa Maria as an annexation. But
Commissioner Nelson?
Yes, thank you, Chair Patino. Orchid already has a CFD, if I'm correct, right?
They do.
Okay,
That's true.
So I just want to make sure I can get that out for the other commissioners, is that part of the Orchid Community Plan, and I just going back to the narrative that we heard about this property and the history. This was originally an agricultural property. It was dry farmed by the Richards family. And when it got rezoned as part of the Orchid Community Plan, there was also a funding mechanism to fund infrastructure, facilities, parks, administration, all that. And there's a facilities district that it's designed as part of this project that would pay into that facilities district to fund those services. Is that correct?
That's my understanding.
Yeah, so that already does exist for those new development properties in the Orchid area. And so there's already that mechanism in place, and this property is, if they were consistent with your community plan, would be potentially paying into that facilities district moving forward. That facilities district also, we have the Orchid Transportation Improvement Plan that they pay into as well, that pays for some of those improvements that we saw in UVP. I think we have Mr. Snedden here as well. I think you might be able to talk about that. So, the Orchid Community Plan was a whole, and it had all these plans, and the way that they were able to do the infrastructure was they were going to fee out for each key site, was going to pay certain fees to pay for infrastructure. And as those would be developed in time, they weren't going to be developed necessarily all at the same time. So you put those money into a pool, which then would be spent on the next most urgent project. And I think, I don't know if Mr. Stedding can speak to some of the transportation challenges. I'd be interested in how those are funded in the Orchid community.
Can I use your notes? Sure. Good afternoon, Chair Patino, Commissioner Nelson. Yeah, it's basically exactly that. And I apologize, I had a typo on that slide of improvements that have been done. The signal that's going in is UVP at Hummel that was mentioned earlier. Those types of projects and that project has been years in the making. The corridor of UVP we've been working on for decades, and the community, the citizens of Orchid are the ones who have been funding those projects since 1997 when the community plan was adopted, put together a financial plan of all the transportation infrastructure that's going to need to be built over the next 20 or 30 years to allow for these key sites to develop. And with that comes a funding plan and having these key sites develop under that funding plan are integral to being able to deliver those projects for the community so that the whole transportation network works for the area.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have one last question for Chief
Yes.
Hartwig when we get a chance.
Yes.
Thank you, Chief Hartwig. And I understood we all heard from Chief Dandridge, your colleague from the city of Santa Maria, but I'd like to get your perspective as well on delivering service to this area of the Orchid community. You know, Station 25 is in its works. You've already paid for those with some of those development impact funds that are already in the Orchid area to buy that station. And where's that at and being developed? How is that station hopefully to be paid for? And how do you see services potentially being delivered to the future residents right there at Union Valley Parkway in Hummel?
Commissioner, if I could through the chair. Yeah, the property for Station 25, which was a less than half mile to the would be the east of the proposed annexation. That property was purchased through the CFD funds, of course, funded by the Community Facilities District. Currently, we serve that area and, quite frankly, areas further to the north from Station 21, as was indicated on there, the closest resource, and then Station 26 over on Clark. Station 25 was identified in a scope studies, a station standard of coverage study by Citygate to be a high priority for the County Fire District for the growth, future growth in Orchid and the existing population in Orchid. So we purchased that, and we will have the construction drawings done by the end of this next budget year with the intent to go out to bid when the construction's drawings are done. So continuing, obviously, our commitment to the Orchid community from the County Fire Department.
Okay, thank you. And just talk to us a little bit about the difference of, ALS versus BLS service with the city and the county, maybe to those residents that would ultimately be at that site.
Yeah, if I could again, Commissioner Nelson, we provide ALS service off all of our equipment in the county. So out of all 16 stations, we provide paramedic service. So a firefighter's cross-trained as a paramedic in addition to their other skills. And as the chief said, they're currently BLS. There are other departments that are BLS within the county and essentially non-paramedic. And we still exchange services, but yeah, we're ALS. That's correct.
And I guess my last question, and just get away from that for a moment, on Chief Dandridge talked about that's only 0.2 miles away, the other station, from our current operations. But it's kind of outside of the timing window. I mean, there's a 4-minute window that you guys, as kind of practitioners, look at. Can you talk about the actual, being distance away versus actually arrival on the scene for something?
Yes, again, Commissioner Nelson, it's we love to use 4 minutes, but we're such a large county. I mean, even with the cities, we depend on each other so much that we really just look at the 4 closest engines because that's a structure response. So really, we rely on each other there. So in the south part of the city, they rely on us, and then on the north part of Orchid, we rely on them. If you were to just break down the proximity of fire engines, it would appear with their Station 6 that was recently staffed, as the chief said, that we would still have 3 of the 4 closest resources with 26, with the future 25, and then with Station 21 out of Old Town there in Orchid.
And last question, I'll make this the last one on this one, guys, I promise. Funding, I mean, you're looking to fund that station. How are you planning on paying for that station, building it as well as staffing it? What is that looking like? And were you anticipating Keysite 26 potentially to be part of that?
So if I could, Commissioner Nelson, and it's interesting, our primary source of funding is property taxes. So we get both developer impact fees from projects, but it's really the property taxes that provide the ongoing staffing and servicing of that station. And so, yes, we are building Station 25 with the projected growth that will happen in 25's area. And of course, if you remove the funding, the property taxes from us, it really inhibits our ability to provide service at a Station 25. And those taxes received in that area will staff Station 25. That is the funding, the future growth out of that area is the funding for Station 25 are projected to be.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Mosby?
Question for the... One of the key issues you said was a service that could be provided by the county or Orchid was water without Santa Maria. Is that correct?
Commissioner Mosby, through the chair, what I said is that we could provide sewer services through Laguna Sanitation District. If we were able to agree to an arrangement with the city, then Golden State Water could provide water to the site. But the county does not have access to water, per se.
Are you aware of any services the city of Santa Maria could provide to this property?
Well, water.
Through Golden State. The Santa Maria doesn't have to get permission from the county to do this, do they?
No.
So the city could provide. Are there any other services the city might not be able to provide?
Well, I think there are some districts that do not want to detach, but I mean, they in theory could. Yeah, is it the most efficient? In our view, it is not.
Okay, so the city could provide all the essential services to this project with the Golden State Water, et cetera.
And they may, depending on whether or not there's an agreement with Laguna Sanitation District, may have to extend sewer services down there.
But they can provide sewer services. It might, maybe in your eyes, not as efficiently, though.
I believe that's correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions? The Commissioner? Oh, Commissioner Aceves?
I'm just wondering, the people have been waiting a long time to speak. Could we hear from the public? And look at the time, we've gone quite long.
Yes, we have. Thank you. I have been asked to take a 5-minute break. Thank you. So if we could take a 5-minute break, and I will hold to it if you can come back. Thank you. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, if any of you want to speak for 1 minute, I will give you preferential treatment and you come to the head of the line. If you would like to speak for 2 minutes, you may do so after the 1 minute people have spoken. Okay, so if you want to speak for 1 minute, probably sit up front so you can come up to the podium to speak and give your name, and then and if you don't want to speak, and then you can leave, and then if you want to speak for 2 minutes, give your name, and our clerk will pull your card then.
Good afternoon. I'm Wendy Kaiser from Orchid, and I really appreciate going forward today and all the wonderful information that's been provided today. One thing I'd just like to mention is that Orchid has paid for the infrastructure of the fire stations that I appreciate mutual aid, but ultimately, if this is developed as an annex site, Orchid's going to be paying for the fire services that are provided, and it's going to take away potentially from the services that can be provided to Orchid, and we're paying for that. So I would ask the city of Santa Maria to not approve the annexing and give the water rights, let them pay for it, whatever the agreements are, out of that 400 some odd feet, whatever the measurement is, that's left in the budget. And for the county to streamline the process, to not make the developer jump through so many more hoops and move forward with the plan where Orchid, the county and Orchid is going to provide a lot of fire services to the area that Santa Maria people will benefit from with that heightened paramedic element on the fire trucks. That's my minute. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Just give your name.
I've got more than 2 minutes. I hope you.
No, if you're 1 minute, I want all the 1 minute. Just one. Yeah.
No, I can't talk that fast.
Okay.
One later. We're doing the 1 minute.
Yeah. So any people that can speak for 1 minute, then please come up here.
I think I can do it. My name is Cliff Solomon, and I live in the Foxwind Gardens Estates in Orchid. I'd like to say first that I don't object to the building of the residences in Richards Ranch. We all know there is a real need for housing on the Central Coast, and Orchid is no different. I do hope that we can keep the development affordable. I do object to the annexation of Richards Ranch parcel in Santa Maria. Orchid has a unique quality of life that fits my needs. Pam Gates and I live in a comfortable condominium complex. Although our neighbors have different interests and personalities, we get along pretty well. The area is mostly quiet except for the military planes that fly overhead. Old Orchid has a unique character. We have the best pizza in town, great wine tasting rooms, and the best hairdresser. We do have 2 grocery stores. There is the Old Town Market, and of course we are getting the 3rd, the grocery outlet. The Orchid plan has laid the groundwork for...
Thank you, Mr. Solomon.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay,
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate your comments.
Sorry. My name is Susanna Brown, and I'm a data scientist. Thank you for the opportunity to respond to the concerns raised today. There's broad agreement that this long vacant site should be part of the solution to the housing crisis. Richards Ranch offers a path forward with a range of housing and community-serving commercial space. Annexation is essential because the county cannot provide water to the site. The City of Santa Maria is the legal service provider under the state law, and a tax sharing agreement will ensure both city and county benefits. While county residents won't vote in city elections, they will gain from infrastructure, services, and housing that supports the local workforce. This is not a hidden process. It's a legally required refinement to eliminate a boundary island. Nearly 40% of the site will be preserved as an open space, including potential monarch habitats. Plans are still conceptual with multiple public review boards ahead, and this process has followed the law, welcomed input, and reflected shared priorities of housing, infrastructure, and smart growth. I respectfully urge you to consider these things. Thank you.
Hi, my name is April Huckabee, and I'm here as a resident of Orchid to express my position regarding the Richard Ranch. And to clarify, I am not here as part of any other group I belong to or may represent. While I am not opposed to the development itself or the project, I am firmly against the proposed annexation of this land to the city of Santa Maria. The annexation will create complications in terms of service delivery and taxation. If the land is annexed into the city of Santa Maria, such services as public safety, infrastructure, and maintenance and roadways fall under city responsibility, but will be surrounded by unincorporated county areas. This patchwork governance model can lead to confusion, even service delivery and burden sharing issues between the city and the county. Orchid residents may find themselves subject to different service standards or tax structures without receiving proportional benefits. Further, I have concerns if this is annexed that the commercial portion of this project may never come to fruition. The city of Santa Maria has a history of approving residential developments that promise future commercial components only for those commercial elements to remain unbuilt or significantly delayed. With these commercial spaces, the project could contribute to, or without these commercial spaces, the project could contribute to
Thank you very much,
increased
Ms.
traffic.
Huckabee.
Okay.
Happy Thursday, Commissioners. Thank you for allowing public comment today and for the commitment to transparency. My name is Joe Pavaroff. I'm a father of four, a grandfather, a U.S. Coast Guard veteran, and a proud member of the Central Coast community. I care deeply about a future that reflects the needs of hardworking families. I'm here to support the Richards Ranch development. Santa Maria is in a housing crisis. I work at Costco and consult in business and tech, and even with that, housing is still our family's biggest challenge. Annexation decisions shape the future of our region. That's why community input like today's matters. Richards Ranch offers 400 apartments, 95 townhomes, real options for working families. It also brings the $1.7 million annually to local schools, shaping the children's lives. $100,000 for health services, nearly $300,000 for emergency response. Thank you to all those supporters, first responders, and critical traffic improvements. This is responsible, community-focused development. I urge you for your support. Thank you.
Thank you. Right on the button. That's all the 1-minuters? Oh, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Susan Bryant. I live in Orchid, right adjacent to the site that you're talking about. You have my written comments already, but I'd like to say I support building the housing, but I'm opposed to annexation. And from the very beginning, even for the draft EIR for Santa Maria, I submitted comments supporting the housing and asked that it would be built to enhance our Orchid community. Now, setting aside blame, I just don't see why parties at this local level cannot find ways to do this together. That's what I've asked for from the beginning, and I'd really like to see you guys figure a way to do that and make it work for the Orchid community. And I'm going to say one more thing, probably shouldn't say it, but I really do want to show appreciation for the county staff. Right now they've been through a bit, and I especially want to show appreciation for Supervisor Nelson. You know, he cares about Orchid, and so that matters to us. Thank you.
2 minutes? Not yet.
Hi, my name is Molly Peters. I've been an Orchid resident for 41 years, been to lots of these meetings, and like so many others, I am not opposed to housing development. I think we need it. I think it's a great plan, but I'm sincerely opposed to the annexation idea. I think it's wrought with a lot of stumbling blocks, and I really don't understand, as so many others have said, why the two halves can't meet in the middle and somehow get us the water that we need for this project. It just doesn't seem like that's an insurmountable task, and it would benefit everyone in so many ways. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that's all the 1 minute? Okay, 2 minutes.
No, sorry. Chair Patino, we have a participant on Zoom who would like to provide a comment.
Pardon? On
Zoom.
Oh, okay.
My name is John Sakashiro.
Hold on, 1 minute, sir,
1 minute.
please.
Hold on 1 minute. But no, you're going to get 2 minutes, but just hold on for 1 minute.
Give me a break.
Okay.
Okay, please proceed with your
I'll try to
comments.
do it in 1 minute. There's a designated wetland adjacent to Union Valley. It's designated, it's been there, and it covers, it's just east of Hummel. The drainage comes from the open spaces that are provided from homes along Bradley and the back end of Amethyst. There are trails that have been established in that area. It's an open space. People use it. I use it for exercise, and I believe it's a service to the community. The open space has got designated trails starting from Pendula and also Cherry, and then also from the homes on Bradley, the new homes on Bradley that have been there for, I'm not quite sure how long. But over and above that, I live in an area where the access to those open areas are visible, and the impacts there are two that there's low-flying aircraft going over that open space that frequent that open space and down and toward the airport. Now, the kind of airport that's coming in low are the ones that refuel tankers for fire retardants. And they come in quite low. And the other things, we're apparently servicing Point Mugu airplanes because of for some reason, the jets fly over that open space, and it comes in quite low, and it comes around just about right over the house.
Thank you. Your 2 minutes is over now, but thank you.
Let's see.
Chair Patino
Okay.
and members
Yes.
of the commission, we will now go to Nick on Zoom.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes,
Hello?
we can hear you.
Okay. Good afternoon, commissioners. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Nick Adamitis, and I'm a board member for the Deputy Sheriff's Association for Santa Barbara County. And I just wanted to bring a couple things to attention, some things of concern, and hopefully I can give you the first responder perspective. First thing is the location of the proposed site. Just looking at law enforcement stations nearby, Santa Maria Police Station is just about 4 miles away from the site, and the Santa Barbara County Sheriff's Office substation up in Santa Maria is just a mile away. So alone, you're looking at 4 times the distance between the Santa Maria Police Station and the Santa Barbara County Sheriff's Station. In my opinion, the Santa Barbara Sheriff's Office is much better positioned to serve this community as a hub of North County patrol operations. It's just down the street. The other area of concern is calls for service and confusion. The community surrounding this location that's being considered for annex is completely covered in jurisdiction as far as the sheriff's office is concerned. It's served by deputy sheriffs, and from my personal experience, responding to critical incidents, calls for service in areas with pockets of different jurisdictions can often lead to confusion. Calls can be misrouted, and ultimately there can be a delay in calls for service. So in my opinion, I think keeping it in the county is better from the first responder perspective. You will maintain good levels of service to that community, and ultimately it's about serving the community. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay.
Good afternoon. My name is Pam Gates, and I live adjacent to this project. I have participated in meetings for 2.5 years as well. I am in favor of and understand the need for development in this area, but strongly oppose the annexation by the city of Santa Maria. Orchid is a special and unique area.
This key site is the gateway to our community, and it should reflect Orchid's personality. If annexed into the city, those of us who live nearby and other Orchid members will have no control over the input on what is developed on this site. Orchid has a viable community plan, and if this land is developed through that guidance, the county will build a residential and community space, commercial space that blends into our neighborhood and maintains its identity. Retaining the project in the county will also keep needed funds in the county to maintain our roads and other services. In closing, I ask the commissioners to value the comments from residents and ultimately decide that this key site should remain in the county. If annexed, our Orchid community will have no voice in how plans are reviewed, approved, and implemented. Please let us retain our voice as this concept becomes a reality. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gates.
Good afternoon. First of all, thank you all for all of your service, especially the LAFCO Commission. Just great, thank you. My name is Lauren Roberts, and I'm a proud resident of Orchid. Self-governance is the bedrock of American democracy, and any chipping away of Orchid moves our shining city further and further away. I understand and support our need for more housing, but please do not fulfill one important goal while sacrificing our community's opportunity, our right to explore the viability of a special district for Orchid. We're not asking for no growth. We're just asking for a delay of game so that we may find a solution that works for Orchid and the county and the developer. I have a silly dream that in the very near future, Commissioner Geyer is going to ask Mr. Prager if we've paid into the right line item for your revenue, that we move out of the county and we move into the special district group. And I will do everything to make sure that we have paid that bill. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Commander Jason Grossini with the Santa Barbara County Sheriff's Office. I'm here on behalf of Sheriff Brown and the Sheriff's Office. I'm the North County Operations Division Commander, which includes our Orchid area. A few points, and I apologize for the redundancy to the DSA's message, but we have some of the same points to make. The proposed annexation is, for all intents and purposes, almost completely surrounded by existing unincorporated residential development that is served by county services. Existing county services are closely located to the proposed annexation area. The sheriff's station on Foster Road is about 1 mile from the property, requiring very little navigation through traffic. Because its location is adjacent to areas regularly patrolled by sheriff's deputies, this location will receive significant regular patrols by the sheriff's office. By contrast, the Santa Maria Police Department station is approximately 4 miles in a drive-through, oftentimes significant traffic during daytime hours. It is also significantly outside the regular patrol areas for Santa Maria Police Department officers and is unlikely to receive frequent regular patrols. Over the years, we have seen what we can only describe as gerrymandering, but not for votes, rather to pull areas of potential good future tax base that are surrounded by unincorporated county and pulling them into cities. We are concerned that this is one of those occasions. It is pretty obvious that the residents and businesses that will eventually populate this property would be best served by remaining part of the unincorporated Orchid area. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Mike Spears. I've lived in Orchid for almost 50 years, and I have a question for each of you commissioners. If you lived in an area where right next to you came the annexation, where you lost control, you lost your voice to the community on how things were done, would you want for annexation? That's my question to you, and that's why I'm against annexation. I've learned a lot here today, and the project seems to be a pretty good one. But without annexation, somehow as been pointed out by a couple of ladies, we need to get together and get this done. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Spears.
Hi, my name is Steve Labard. I've been a resident of Orchid for 50 years. I'm a disabled Vietnam veteran. I am opposed to this annexation. I think the city of Santa Maria should simply sell the water to the project to get the project done. One thing that strikes me is we've heard from numerous citizens of Orchid that they're for the project, but they're against the annexation. If this property is annexed by the city, there's a good chance that a lot of those Orchid residents are going to boycott this project. And if they boycott this project, I'm sure the project is the money that they think they're going to make from it is coming from the Orchid citizens, and that's not going to happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Labard.
We will now go to Greg Gentile, to be followed by Donna Pulling. Okay. Do we have Donna Pulling? Okay. We will now go to Lindy Hatcher.
Good afternoon, Chair Patino and LAFCO members. I'm Lindy Hatcher, speaking on behalf of the Home Builders Association of the Central Coast. We represent over 100 building industry businesses in SLO and Santa Barbara counties, all working in unison to bring much needed and desired housing to our areas. The HBA views the annexation of Richards Ranch as a strong signal that Santa Barbara County supports responsible housing development. That's an essential step in tackling California's housing shortage and improving access to homes for many working families. We support projects like Richards Ranch that represent smart growth, well-planned infrastructure, and collaboration with the City of Santa Maria, and a balanced mix of residential and commercial development. These features will boost economic development while helping reduce commuter traffic impacts. Projects like this are a prime example of infill development that communities want and need. On April 8th, we heard supportive opinions from the California Building Industry Association, the National Association of Home Builders, which is a first in my 6-year career with the HBA. I've never heard them come and talk at any local meeting. And we also heard from the California Department of Housing and Community Development, and they weighed in on processes and practices surrounding this well-planned Builders Remedy project last month. I urge you to watch the April 8th Santa Barbara Board of Supervisors recording and check that out. We ask you to thoroughly review and consider these collaborative industry experts, united opinions, and support the Richards Ranch project. And I just have to throw this out there. When you're talking about the butterflies, there's not 1 square foot in California, I don't believe, that is not affected by an endangered species. So that's there. There's always mitigation. And I invite you to come to our Builder Breakfast.
Thank you, Ms. Hatcher.
May 14th, and hear legislation.
And our last speaker is Kristen Polera.
Thank you, Chair, for letting me read this on Kristen's behalf. She asked me to read it. She couldn't stay this late. As a lifelong resident of Orchid, I've watched this community grow and change over the years, but some things haven't changed at all. One of those is the empty Richards Ranch property, which has sat vacant for over 40 years, growing weeds instead of providing homes and opportunities for local families. I knew the original Richards family. They were hardworking folks who cared deeply about Orchid and believed this land should one day be used to benefit the community. That time has come. Richards Ranch isn't just another development. It's a thoughtfully planned neighborhood with much-needed housing, walkable streets, and local commercial space. It also brings long overdue improvements to Union Valley Parkway, making the area safer and more connected. What many people don't realize is that this site needs to be annexed into the city of Santa Maria to move forward. The county simply doesn't have the water resources or infrastructure to serve the project, but the city does. Annexation will allow the city to provide services. Tax sharing agreement between the county and city will ensure both governments and, most importantly, the public benefit from this project. But this is about more than one project. Richards Ranch has been in the works for years, and it has broad local support. We are in the middle of a housing crisis, and this is exactly the kind of infill development we need. If we can't come together as a community to get something this ready and beneficial across the finish line, what does that say about our ability to address the challenges ahead? It would be a shame to let this land sit empty for another 20 years while housing prices keep climbing and young families get priced out and local businesses struggle to find workers. Richards Ranch, which is with its central location, access to Union Valley Parkway and Highway 35, and mixed-use design, represents one of the best opportunities we have to meet these needs. I urge both the county and the city to work together for the greater good and approve the annexation. Let's show that we can rise to the moment, honor the legacy of the Richards family, and finally make this land a place where Orcutt families can live, work, and thrive. Thank you.
Thank you. And is that all the public comment?
Chair Patino and members of the commission, that is our last speaker.
Okay. Any other comment from the commissioners? If not, we will file and receive and file.
I have a couple of last comments. I mean, I know it's been belabored quite a bit, but I just kind of wanted to correct the record a little bit on the water issue, because that's been kind of germane to this whole conversation about what has the county done and what hasn't it, and I think that Mr. Stolte weaves a story that makes it sound like, we haven't done anything and that we haven't tried to had conversations with the city. Early on in this process, we had actually Mona Miyasato and Jason Stillwell sit down, and Jason said at that point, they'd be interested in selling the water to us if we would give them the sales tax. And they came back and asked me, hey, would you be okay with that? And I said, yeah, absolutely, we would be. And then I got back and they walked away from that. And Mr. Stolte said, we didn't think you guys would agree to that. So, So that was the problem. So all on this process, we've had issues time and time again. When we started the development agreement process with them after the housing element, we went through this process. We thought we had an agreement between staffs on providing water and moving forward. And again, the applicant went around and thwarted those efforts as well. And so, it's really hard for me to sit here and hear how can't get the water, we tried so hard, hey, Bob's got to go find it somewhere, when the developer has constantly worked against getting water for the project to be in the county. There are other options. There's conservation projects. There's, talking to other jurisdictions that have water. There's other ways to bring water in here. There's they blame the county that the county never bought water during the housing or during the state water project. The county's not a water purveyor. It really was Golden State, which, a responsibility to do that. We are constantly looking for other options. We've discussed it many times at the board. We will continue to be looking for other options. We think that that's an important priority for the county. So I just want to make sure I got that out on the record. There is another side of the story. You guys got one part of it here today, but there's a lot more to it. No matter what, Mr. Stolte says, we're going to continue to work towards finding solutions for these problems in our area. So whether this annexation moves forward or not, those are efforts that we're making, and we'll continue to do that.
You know what, Mr. Nelson, I can just go back to, we can go back a long time in history about the water, and the people in Orcutt did not want water out there because they didn't want growth. But even sitting in the city of Santa Maria, we wanted to buy table A water, and the county would not let us have it. So, there's just a lot of water stories that people out there don't realize. There's water sitting out there that the county would not let the city of Santa Maria have. And if we had had that water, this would be a different story completely. But we'll go on now to other items on the agenda. Sorry, Mr. Stolte, but public comment is over.
Madam Chair, at the start of this meeting, we did allocate that they would have a short rebuttal.
Oh, you did? Okay.
For clarification.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Mr. Stolte, go ahead.
I hope this doesn't turn into a battle.
It's going to, because this is final comments. We went through a question and answer earlier in the process.
Okay.
But if we're going to go back and forth, we can do that.
Well, they were told I did not know that they were told they could have rebuttal. Okay.
Wait, it's not a hearing, it's a workshop, right?
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so
just to clarify, what Super Nelson just said was that I somehow squashed a water deal between the city of Santa Maria and the county of Santa Barbara. Does that make sense to anybody? Yeah. Okay. Okay.
See, this is what it's going to turn into.
Okay.
So I'll leave it at that. That is literally contrary to how we do projects in business. But I do want to kind of touch on some items that were brought up and make sure that some things are clarified. So the county did bring up the concern of roads and that this is a road island. The reality is that all of the roads inside of Richards Ranch are private roads. We designed it that way. So the development will take care of all the roads inside the entire development. So it is not a road island. I won't get too far into a peninsula, but I will say that, the airport business park plan, if I said that correctly, is directly adjacent to this site. And so this site, in conjunction with that site, are being planned and coordinated together. And so the idea of a peninsula is that a site is going to essentially be stuck out by itself. The reality is that this site, whether in the county or the city, is a gateway project between the county and the city. And we've always planned it that way. And it is conjoined in that effort from a commercial standpoint. Urban services and efficiency, it's well known the reason why LAFCO exists is because, and annexations exist, is that cities generally provide services more efficiently. It is for the public good, and that is within the LAFCO's bylaws and manuals that this is why cities exist. Cities grow, they're efficient, they provide comprehensive services. I think the most important thing that I want to get across is that this project is essentially baked. It's been in the works for 4 years. We've spent considerable time and money to get it to this point. The environmental impact report was evaluated specifically for this annexation, for this project to be in the city of Santa Maria. It is that whole environmental impact report in that box does not apply to a county project. This is a great example of how and why we're in a housing crisis right now. What's being asked of us, if water could be provided to the county, this whole project starts over. We're talking 3 to 5 years at best, discretionary approvals, litigation risk. This project, as the project that people like and that there seems to be a general consensus on, that project does not survive that. It just doesn't. It's not reasonable. We can't do a lot of the things that we've committed to and that we've planned and that all of the work that has been put in. That can't make it another 5 years and go through this whole process again. So the reality is that it's being talked about like it's a very simple switch. It's not. It's extremely difficult and unfair and literally puts off a ready-to-go housing project that we started because there was not a solution in this area for this site. Like, we started it to solve that problem. To me, and I'll leave it at this is a canary in the coal mine for our region. If we can't get this project done, where are we as a community? You know, you have a landowner that stepped forward and has put considerable time and resources into trying to resolve this. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we can move on to the agenda?
Yes.
Okay. The next business item, Madam Clerk, can you read that into the record?
Chair Patino and members of the commission, business item number 2 is to consider recommendations regarding amendments to Commissioner Handbook and provide direction to staff to return at a future meeting with any changes and/or additions as needed to address records retention and destruction.
I want to thank everyone for being here today. Appreciate it. Appreciate all the public comments. Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
It's okay. That was it. Before I move on, I will, for those that are gathering, we'll give them a second.
Okay.
I would tell the public to stay engaged and to await any formal hearings or any future study sessions that we might take, if necessary, for Richard's Ranch. So, as you
Thank you.
walk away from here, just stay engaged.
Okay.
More to be followed.
Thank you, Mr. Prater.
Okay. On to the records retention.
Okay.
Business item 2. So Santa Barbara LAFCO, we have never adopted a records retention and destruction policy. It has never been part of our books. And so over the years, but my predecessors, we've just accumulated files and paper. That is beginning to consume much of the office space. If you've ever been to the office, you'll note file cabinets lined every wall. We're estimating somewhere about 100,000 pieces of paper that is contained within our office. Some of it duplicative, some of it old, non-necessary, some of it important documents that we have to retain regardless. And so there's a work effort that will have to be brought forward at some point to determine what would be kept and what wouldn't be. But before we get to that work effort, we wanted to adopt a policy that gave us some directions on what we should retain and what we could destroy. And so that's what are the policies that are set forth for you today. These policies have been developed basically to be in uniform standards relative to all of the laws that are in place, and particularly the Cortese-Knox-Hertzberg Act. We developed a schedule, which is attachment B, which basically is the guidepost that would provide us the ease of interpreting what documents we need to retain, after what year, could it be destroyed. The policy itself will set the direction. The schedule attachment kind of gives us that guiding implementation of it. With that, I will note that I did want to make some minor amendments to that policy and schedule, and I'll notate those, particularly before we adopt it. So what we wanted to do was add the title original in front of the header of that document so that it says original records retention. And that same original word would follow in the policy of section 3 in that paragraph. So it's minor addition just for clarification. And then within the schedule itself, under 4 different notations, we wanted to add until in front of all of the ones that have to go through an audit process. So it'd say until it's audited so many years. So those are the 2 minor changes that we've asked the commission to consider, and we hope you adopt a records retention policy so that we have something on the books as we look forward to cleanup of our records. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Oh, Commissioner Freeman.
I'm having a difficult time understanding something that's very core and also probably very trivial. So sorry about that. Like for example, like meeting agendas, you've got the retention original paper record is 2 years. Is how long for the digital copy?
Permanent.
Okay. Then I'm fine with this. Okay, yeah, I was I was trying to figure, was that 5 years? Is that the default? Okay, all right.
Commissioner Stark.
I do have a question. Does your policy, I'm sure it's entirely reasonable, does it embody any way to flag records that need to be saved because of a threat of litigation?
Good point.
There should be something with which you can put a hold on a record if there's a threat of litigation.
All records ultimately will be digitized and saved, so we'll have a record for litigation.
Council's okay with that?
Commissioner Stark, through the chair, usually that is sufficient, but oftentimes if there is litigation,
I would send out some sort of litigation hold to make sure that nothing is destroyed while that litigation is pending.
Thanks.
Any other questions? Oh, Commissioner Aceves?
Just to, when would we be purging these records? We could do it annually in January, or is it, and secondly, does it have to come back to the commission with a record of what's being purged?
Commissioner Aceves, through the chair, we would adhere to the schedule, the original records retention schedule as included as Attachment D, which will be retitled to Appendix D once we get it adopted. And so when we begin to initiate, first and foremost, I think we need to understand a little bit better about what records we have on file and a long-term approach to how we address it. But ultimately, when the original record is ready to be destroyed, we would digitize that copy and we would destroy that copy, and we would not bring it back to the commission, where we would follow this schedule that's being adopted.
Thank you.
So what, I'm just concerned about eliminating a document and saying we're having it digitized without someone acknowledging it. I mean, I think the commission should have some kind of a, even if it's just an agenda report, just a brief one that we're purging X, Y, Z, so it's on the record, instead of just having staff purge it without us knowing about it. I was a little troubled about getting rid of public records without documentation that it was purged and copied by a certain date. Maybe I'm just being too worrisome, but I just think, I mean, we've got records there we've had forever. Do we really want to know that we got rid of them?
Well, that's up for discussion with the commission, obviously. With that in note, it would be amending Section 3 of the new policy, which talks about destruction authorized following the required retention policy. So you would want to stick in language that the executive officer would bring forward an agendized item documenting the records to be destroyed.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions from the commission? Commissioner Mosby?
So generally, what I've been involved in is a list comes forward on consent of what's being abandoned. So that way you know that it existed before it was shredded and digitized. So there is a listing that way. I think it's just simpler that way, that acknowledge it happened.
Commissioner Freeman?
I'm now curious about the practicalities of this. So we've got 100,000 documents in boxes, and are the documents labeled? Like, I can see how we can take that, hand it to the digitization service, and get back 100,000 pages of PDFs. I see how that works. I understand we can use search engines to find these things later, but I'm now wondering about our ability to categorize them and provide them on the consent agenda in a way that anyone will be able to understand, with respect to us being able to agree that we destroyed them. Okay. Let's just say the first page from the second box. Like, how organized is it currently? I don't know. Like, maybe it's like pristinely organized, little file folders with little labels and everything.
It is not organized.
That's what I would have thought. Yeah. So I'm that's not certain about how practical is. Like, do you feel like you nonchalantly threw out that amendment, but like, do you feel up to being able to satisfy that amendment?
I can't tell you sitting here today. I really don't know what those documents are. It would be probably a challenge, even if I did, to line item every page that was intended to be destroyed because it's been scanned. So I would wager on the side of it would be a difficult task to inform you of every document.
Can I?
Right.
Chair
Director
Pino,
Nelson.
Aren't these scanning agencies, don't they usually certify that they've documented that they've scanned it all? Like, I mean, isn't that kind of part of their licensing and bonding on these types of things?
We have not gotten into the use of a scanning agency.
Okay.
I anticipate that's what we'll do, and we'll probably have to target what that cost will be, and you'll see in a future budget item an expedited line item for that service.
Yeah, I think it's good to go to the professionals that do this for other agencies that, they're used to making sure they check and double check, and that's part of the redundancies of their shredding policies and whatnot that they're executing. So I'd be comfortable once we have that all in place.
I know, what do other agencies do? Because they're under the same, concerns that we are.
I would have to actually look into that particularly.
Commissioner Stark?
At the risk of prolonging the agony, is there possibly some benefit in continuing this to the next item so you can get these detailed questions resolved as opposed to passing the policy and amending it later if you need to? There's two good alternatives.
Yeah, it's at the discretion of the commission, obviously. I'm not sure I will be able to get that answer to you by our June meeting. I could send out a feeler of what do other agencies do, but I'm not quite sure. And I'm certainly not going to be able to tell you a detailed record of what's in the office.
Well, perhaps the prudent thing to do is to adopt a recommendation, bring it back in a couple months when you have the answers, and amend it if necessary. It's not like it's going to put everything in stone that we can't fix later.
Right. And certainly, I'm not going to be destroying records anytime soon. We want to get a full grasp of what's there, what's our fundamental process, who are we going to hire to do this work, and get a budget allocation for that. And so, realistically, we're probably a year or more away from actually doing it. We just want to get a policy on the book now and start to think about it.
Commissioner Aceves?
Okay, I opened Pandora's box, so I'll close it. I don't think we need to prove something today. I think you're going to bring this back with whatever company you're going to employ that will be able to answer all the questions we have as far as retention, time schedules, et cetera.
Commissioner Freeman?
I'm on that page, partly also because if we approve this, I don't know if I saw any clauses that we shouldn't start destroying anything until after we've done the scanning part, because without that, it's like somebody could be like, well, there's that document and it says you only have that document for 2 years. You've had it for 40 years. You should destroy it right now today. And it's like, well, no, we haven't even scanned it yet. We just did this. And so
Do I need a motion or just that consensus? You say you have direction.
Consensus on return when we have more answers. It's fine.
Okay.
We're good.
Sounds good. Okay. Next are information items. Next item, Madam Clerk, can you read the next G1?
Chair Patino and members of the commission, information item number 1 is to receive a report on Chair's approval of out-of-agency services for the Carpinteria Sanitary District under a public health threat to provide sewer service to property located in the unincorporated area of the county at 3211 Beach Club Road, Carpinteria.
Mr. Prater.
Thank you. So this item is to report and inform the commission that on April 3rd, the chair authorized an out-of-agency service agreement to the Carpinteria Sanitation District to provide sewer services to that property on Beach Club Drive. And that is consistent with the commissioner's policies adhering to the public health and threat and safety that has been declared, and that an application actually has been filed with our office, and it is going through the process.
Thank you. Any discussion from the commissioners? Hearing none. I forgot to ask for public comment on the last one. You didn't correct me. Any public comment on this one?
Chair Patino and members of the commission, we have no request to speak on this item.
Okay. So that was informational, and the next item is informational, item number 2. Madam Clerk, could you please read that item into the record?
Chair Patino and members of the commission, information item number 2 is to receive and file an oral report for upcoming LAFCO Regional Focus Group meeting for Coastal Region on Wednesday, May 28th, 2025 at 11 a.m. to be held in San Jose.
Thank you.
Okay, this is to announce that the regional focus group meeting will be held on Wednesday, the 28th in San Jose. commissioners are welcome if you wanted to attend, and staff will attend on behalf of the commission. This is part of Pamela Miller's guidance to move forward with restructuring of the process and to discuss the future of Cal LAFCO as an association. And so she's gathering input and wanting our focus from our region.
Okay, any discussion, questions from the panel?
I have a question. Is this Zoomable, or do we have to schlep to San Jose?
No, not Zoomable.
It's
this is
schleppable, but
an
not
in-person-
Zoomable.
This is an in-person meeting that they're going to attend, and there'll be an output from that I can share with the commission. And before I close that up, legal counsel has asked that if we can go back and ask for public comment on business item 2 so that we can close the books on our agenda. And we'll take public comment on this one.
I want to do the
Let's
public
close
comment
this
on
one and
this
then go
one
back.
first before I forget. Any public comment on this item,
Chair
Madam Clerk?
Patino and members of the commission, we have no request to speak on this item.
I'm sorry, I brought the other one up. Public comment on item number 2.
Chair Patino and members of the commission, we have no requests to speak under business item number 2.
Thank you very much. And we go on next to commissioners and staff announcements. Are there any commissioner announcements or requests for future agenda items? Commissioner Stark?
I have a question for our EO. It has to do with that San Francisco conference. I've probably much ruled out being able to attend it in person. I think it would be useful if we spent the sort of excessive amount of money and got their materials and made it available to all the commissioners. And I request that our EO do that.
Okay. Commissioner Freeman?
More concretely from what I've mentioned at previous meetings, but now with an actual more firm date, unless something extremely strange happens, next meeting will be my last meeting. So we need to figure out what I need to file with you about that, or yeah.
We'll get your closing of office.
Are there any executive officers' comments?
I have no further comments. I will note, under future agenda items, there was a request to bring back the fee schedule. I anticipate bringing that back in August.
Okay. I don't see any lights on here. So in that case, I will adjourn this meeting. The Santa Barbara County Local Agency Formation Commission is adjourned to 1 o'clock on June 5th, 2025 in Santa Maria. Thank you.